Hello, everyone. How are you? This is my first Wednesday edition, and I'm calling these Wednesday shows Special Thoughts, because this is where we're going to explore special thoughts. And so we dropped the Sunday show, and we are keeping the Friday and Saturday show, and then I'm doing this Wednesday thing, middle of the week. And I think that's going to work for us. CW hasn't joined me yet. I sent the link, but I don't want to keep anyone waiting, so I started. So welcome. I know that there are other things that you could be doing with your entertainment time, but you're choosing to be here, and I appreciate that. I am not watching the chat room at this second. Hold on. Maybe I will. Here we go. Oh, yeah. I see Speedy, Netta, Groovy AJ. So other people will be joining. And I'm willing to bet that if you're watching this show, you want to hear about the topic, you want to see CW and I discuss this. But you're probably watching because of CW. And you're probably just now finding my channel. Unless you're a regular fan here. You're probably here to see the conversation and see this with CW. And I welcome you if you're watching for that reason, or if that's what brought you here. Thank you. I hope that Joe from the Carolinas is watching, and I hope that Dark Journalist watches. Of course, they'll probably watch this at some point. I'm just kind of checking everything here. I see Lisa P. She's moderating tonight. And you see that she has a wrench. Hello, Lisa P. Thank you very much for being here. And sometimes it takes a few minutes for the email to go through and for the link to get clicked. So I messaged CW on Twitter. And he says he's on it. So there we go. And he's a total pro, so we know that he'll be here in any time. So I want to thank everyone for coming on. This will be a great discussion. And I was kind of hoping to kind of frame all this once CW showed up. I have things I want to say, but I wanted him to hear them too, so that we could all make sure that we're on the same page. I see that there's 24 people watching. That's amazing. Thank you so much once again. I'm just kind of singing and dancing here until he joins me. I'm completely prepared to have this conversation with him in depth. We are going to talk about this situation with Jordan Sather, who has apparently, because I have a screenshot of it myself from his Twitter account, doxxed an alternative research journalist. And we're not going to name that journalist here on this show tonight, because we're going to respect him and we're not going to contribute to the nastiness of doxing someone. So we're going to respect this person, and we're not going to name them, and we're not going to give away their information. We're not going to play that game here. We're going to talk about how shitty it is to dox someone. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And it's incredible. I know that the mainstream media is blowing up right now with political news. And this is not a political show. I don't do left and right politics on this show. I'm not even going to get into politics. We don't do it here. This show is a respite from political news and just the mainstream media garbage that gets thrown at us. This show is supposed to be fun and or entertaining. It's gotten a little more serious lately. We are still a kind of a late night themed comedy show, talk show. The vibe of this show, the intention here is that this has the vibe of kind of a late night television show where there is some smart assery and goofing off and joking around and being silly and stupid sometimes, but then also having some engaging, interesting, and relevant interviews that are timely in accordance with events around them. And so I try to follow that model, and that's what we're doing tonight. This is a little more of a serious subject. CW himself has quite a good sense of humor, in my opinion, and he's pretty funny. And I'm really anxious to see what it's going to be like when him and I are talking, because I don't know. I watch his show, and I listen to his verbiage. I listen to how he states things and how carefully he speaks, and he's well spoken, and that's refreshing in all of this. I've had some guests on the show, even recently, that I don't always completely agree with. I don't always agree with what they're saying or necessarily believe it. And that's something that I am kind of soul searching about right now. And to be quite honest with you, this topic has caused me to soul search, um, because I do, for transparency's sake, I do work with what? Oh, okay. I just got word that I need to resend the link. So please stand by. Resend the link.
No. That's all me. That's all me.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry. I'm like, link, and I'm like, oh, there it is in a different email. Oops.
Sorry.
No. All me.
It's all good. I was just kind of doing a song and dance until you showed up.
I saw you, so I'm sitting over here. I'm panicking. I'm like, she's Griffin. She's gonna run out of vamp.
No. I have real vamp to go, so you'll get a proper introduction here.
Hey, listen, God bless.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really honored to have you on here. Like I was saying,
me. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. This is a small show. It's just starting out. I've only got 167 subscribers. And that kind of leads me to wanting to frame this conversation so that more for the viewers, because you're a real pro at this and you understand what's going on. But I just come on to lay down a few parameters here. I wanted to say this to you, CW, as well. I have never advertised myself as a researcher or a serious lecturer in the field of ufology.
I like you already.
I'm passionate about it. And what brings us to this conversation, and some of what I've done in the past, is because I care about the community. And I don't want to see the community damaged. And that's why I've been outspoken in the past and done some kidding and poking and prodding at Corey Good and David Wilcock and Emery Smith and people of that ilk. And so I do not claim to be a serious researcher. My show is entertainment. I am the class clown, and I openly admit that. And so I don't want to try to present myself as something that I'm not. This show is for entertainment. And I'm not saying that as some kind of an out. We definitely cover some serious topics, and I do it in a respectful way. And if anyone wants to question that, and I'll stop this little diatribe, check out my recent interviews with James Gilliland from ESETI Ranch, and I asked him hard questions. I didn't ambush him, but I pushed this topic with him. Watch my interview with Travis Walton. I also bring up the topic of how to believe experiencers. Some we believe, some we don't, and how to sort that out for ourselves and use discernment. So that being said, I just want to have that as my disclaimer. I'm not trying to sell myself as something I'm not. It's a CW Chanter, Joe from the Carolinas, dark journalist. These people are the serious analysts in this scene right now. They are the investigative journalists. I like to think of myself as a kind of a pseudo, journalist, citizen journalist, I suppose is the term. At least I hold myself to those standards. And I have actually worked as a journalist at a newspaper, so I know what journalistic standards are. And that's why I try to adhere to them. And so without further ado, CW Chanter, thank you so much for being here.
No, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for having me. I tell people all the time, nothing gives me more satisfaction than appearing to get invites to other places, to have people think that there'd be anything credible enough about what I do or who I am as a person to think that to extend an invitation to me. Really, it means the world to me. And and I'm very happy to meet you at the dawning of your career. And God willing, God is willing, and the creek don't rise. My appearance here will help boost your numbers. I really
Yes.
like what you shared in the beginning. My attitude about it is this: what happened with the dawn of all so-called alternative media with internet started off to a good start, but then things started going to people's heads, and then before you know it, alternative media just became a situation as problematic as mainstream media. My attitude about it is the democratization, the punk rockification of journalism and communication that happens with YouTube and Twitter and everything shouldn't give rise to alternative media. It should give rise to no media. Real life human
Correct.
beings, not putting on airs or affectations, just talking to each other down to earth, bearing in mind that, dude, if you go to any of these conferences, there's 18. If there's 1,000 people in the room, there's 1,000 people with their own mystical, magical experiences of the unexplained, whether it be night terrors or whether it be just magical moments under the moonlight lit sun. All these wonderful things that can happen to us in planet Earth if we open our eyes and enjoy the wonder of it all. So we don't need these celebrities anymore putting on these games, these experts. They're giving us information that seems to help them more than it helps us. You know what I mean? You mentioned James Gillian, and I'm just, I have friends that have gone out to East City Ranch. You know what I mean? I've got my own attitude about those things, and I've
Mhm.
seen that game played 1,000 times. I tell people all the time, I go, look, in my brief time on planet Earth, I've been involved in Scientology, the Church of Satan, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, Adidam, Swaminarayan Hinduism. I've been around the bench. So when I tell you that something sounds and smells like and acts like a cult, don't worry about it. Just take my word for it and run.
Right.
You know what I mean? There you
No,
go.
I
I'll tell
get
you anything you want to hear. You want to know about your past life? Guess what? You have a wonderful past life. You were
I
Queen of Egypt or whatever.
I get that. And that's something I want to address with you right here because I feel like having integrity is super important. And one of the reasons I admire your work is because you do it with 100% integrity. I'm not saying that you're always right because I'm not saying that everyone is right all the time, but you are passionate about this and you are coming at this from a place of integrity, and all of your intentions are good. You are not here to overturn the apple cart just for the sake of causing a scene. You're doing this because you care about what's going down here, and you care about people being wronged, and you care about lies, and you care about the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this respectable.
Most
And
certainly, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we aim for. It's whenever I get things wrong, it's not for any intentional double dealing. It's because sometimes our passions get a hold of us. You might think that you're dealing with someone who's a fair-handed, even dealer, and then it turns out that you were backing the wrong horse. These things happen in life, but like I said, if we remember, the whole thing is just always remind people that if you listen to people as if you're listening to people you just met at a bar or at a club or at a social occasion, don't sign off on anything automatically. Listen with your own ears and think about things and think about what people are saying. Then you find yourself in a wonderful position where you can just take in people's ideas, concepts, and stories as food for thought rather than taking it as some sort of, dictation from the heavens about the way things are. And I tell people all the time, I go, look, there's plenty of people that are going to tell you that come on YouTube and they tell you they've got all the answers for this or that, whether it's because they're enlightened or whether or not they've been blessed by angels or whether or not they channel the third rock from the sun or whatever the case may be, that they can tell you all these things that they know. And I tell people, I go, take a break from all that stuff and tune into me. And you're just going to get someone just like you that says, I got more questions than answers. You know what I mean? I'm just here trying to figure it all out. And that's what we're doing. We're living life. You know what I mean? And I think you might agree with me that it is a wonderful time to be alive in this community because something started and something's been starting and happening, and there's a whole bunch of new voices on the scene who are not going to take it anymore and are not just going to accept people at their word and just hand over their money, hand over their soul, hand over their hours, and hand over their free thinking mind, but are going to ask important questions and are going to press and are going to say things like, hey, doesn't this smell a lot like Hollywood BS? And if it smells like Hollywood BS, why don't we just go see Guardians of the Galaxy? Right? They
Right.
got better special effects.
Exactly. So I'm going to try to. I watch your show, and you have a very particular style. You kind of free flow as you go along. And I don't want to censor you here tonight. You can use any language you want. You can say anything you want.
I'll
If
use
I interrupt,
Japanese.
all right. If if I interrupt you or try to kind of guide that flow a little bit, it's just because I feel a tremendous responsibility here tonight, since this
Right.
topic is blowing up, to ask you the questions that I think everyone else wants to hear.
Sure.
So I'm not just asking the questions for me. I'm trying to imagine the audience out there and all the questions people have, and I'm trying to, just be here as a surrogate for them, and put myself in their
Right.
place and ask what I think they want to hear. So
Right.
I'm going to jump into this. I have some
Go for
quotes,
it. Sure,
and
sure.
these are very accurate. They're slightly paraphrased. I just cleaned up some of the sentences to make them more concise. But I took these notes from your video today. These are from last night's video titled "Jordan Sather Supports the Doxing of Legitimate Healers." That's an 11/6/18 broadcast. And at the top of the show, and I'm just going to read these off and then we'll jump into it. You say to Jordan Sather, you have gone after one of mine, speaking about this person that he doxed, who is a good person who does good work and is a reputable person, and no one deserves to be doxed. You have called Corey Good's camp Blue Avian Chicken Cult, which I agree with. And I love it. That cracks me up.
If the feather fits.
It is. It is. And then there's a kind of a two-parter. And you said this, and I just really want to refresh this for the audience so we can get context for tonight's conversation. Last night you said, you know the story on Corey Good, right? In the middle of the night, a blue little ball comes down and captures up that dick sucker, takes him off to Pluto, where he hangs out with blue chicken people. And I think that that's amazing and that's hilarious. And then you also said intimidation is the order of the game. These people are making other people feel scared. The reason for putting people into fear is to affect their behavior, which we're talking about the intimidation factor here. And in reference to the Corey Good activists, these people who are pulling these shenanigans online, in reference to them, you said you do not have to be in fear of these jackasses. These guys aren't gangsters. They're not MS-13. And indeed, they are not. And I'm not afraid of them. And then also in your show, and I think this is important, and I'll let you explain this, you say to Jordan Sather, you call him out and you invite him to spend 2 hours in the verbal octagon with you, and you will donate a guaranteed $3,000 to the charity of his choice to debate you for 2 hours. And that's the context of your broadcast last night. And now I want to jump into this subject and let's dissect this.
Sure. And there's a lot to dissect. And we're all trying to find what ends up happening is that this is all going down in real time. So as things are happening every day, things change. You not only have to deal with digesting the actions of people, you have to digest and dissect their double speak. And you have to do it, with some crowd noise. You have to deal with crowd noise on your side, people that are inclined to believe with you. And you have to deal with a lot of pushback from some people that are they sock accounts? Are they just true believers who are, deceived in some way or just dedicated to a cause? But the couple of things that we need to know and understand what's happening in a nutshell. And in fact, you know what I mean? I joined the ranks, I was doxxed today. The same
Were you?
parties. Yeah. They put out a picture of me, my father, my parts of my law firm's website, all these things, and basically using my real name, which is the essential nature of a dox. You know that I use CW Chanter. You know that I'm just speaking, and you make a decision, and it goes to show you how their side of the how their team is playing this and what they're willing to do, and things that, look, I mean, to be totally honest, their entire operation is falling apart. If people want to know the true story about Corey Good, here's what we know. In 2015, before Corey Good got his start, and he was just a person posting on Project Avalon forum, and he had just given his first interview recorded statement to a woman by the name of Christine Anderson, who was the ex-wife of Bill Ryan. Bill Ryan is very famous for his involvement in Project Camelot, and for those people with really long memories, prior to Project Camelot, he had a lot of reputation and fame and infamy, some people would say, for his involvement in something that was known as Project Serpo, that in many
Yes.
ways, in many ways, was a predecessor of this whole cosmic disclosure push towards the publication of a fantastical story in and of itself. But not to get in the weeds, let's concentrate on Corey Goode. In
Indeed.
2015, there was the YouTube had developed a series of outlets, and Facebook and the web had developed a series of outlets where people who thought that they had unusual experiences could publish those accounts. At the same time that you had Corey Goode coming out and telling his story, there was another individual by the name of Shane the Ruiner, who had a very famous blog at the time that was promoted heavily on Project Avalon Forum, that had a similar tale of being an Illuminati insider, sleeping giants, talking to Sasquatch, doing psychic training with Putin on Mars moon bases, and the like. And I ended up becoming friends with Shane, but that's further into the story. But what we need to know is that Corey Goode was one amongst many. There was Shane the Ruiner, there was Randy Kramer, there was Andrew Bashago, to say nothing
Right.
of the literally thousands of people that preceded them in this coming out of being a contactee, whether we're talking all the way back in the day of guys like George Adamski, or the tales of Valiant Thor, or Rael, who still has that religious organization, the Raelians, who
Hmm.
oftentimes will make minor league headlines by fantastic tales of human cloning experiments. And you also, of course, you had Hale Bopp, you know what I mean,
Right.
the Heaven's Gate
Heaven's
organization.
Gate, San Diego.
Yeah. So when people so here's the other thing that we need to remember about Heaven's Gate. When I react strongly to Corey Goode and act as though some people want to say, "Hey, CW, you got a guy over here on the internet telling fantastical stories that no one in their right mind would accept without any evidentiary support." There's holes all over the place, even starting before you get into the question of how he interacts with the world or how he acts as a person. Just looking at the story itself, the way things are named. He's apparently part of an organization that call themselves, in some way, shape, or form, the Secret Space Program. He's
Right.
contacted by Blue Avians who call themselves Blue Avians. I mean, it's a fantastical kind of adventure story that I tell people this all the time. Natasha, if we were to take this to Hollywood and try and sail this up the flagpole,
They would
they would
laugh.
kick us. They would kick us out on our keisters.
Yeah.
In a world full of Star Wars and Star Trek and Guardians of the Galaxy and the fantastical mythology of the Marvel universe or the DC comic universe, from even TV shows like a Black Mirror, with very intriguing, concepts and inner mind plays, or even Doctor Who. And for God's
Right.
sakes,
Exactly.
this stuff barely competes with Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It is a silly, farcical story full of shallow, callow characters with no inner drive or dialogue. People with one name who just represent the most crude, childlike archetypes of the mad scientist or the aloof general who knows too much but also knows too little. And just the whole notion that any cosmic entity that sought to spread a message of love and peace and understanding on planet Earth would do so in a way that was illogical. I mean, if you wanted to spread a message of peace, love, you would give it bona fides in character. You would give the guy technology that he could demonstrate. You would break into the satellite communications of the Super Bowl and say, "People of Earth, here we are. Look at us. We're fantastical creatures from beyond, Pluto," or whatever the case may be. Why would you do it in this way? And then when you get to how he acts as an individual in person, you say to yourself, even if we assume for argument's sake that there's a wonderful, beautiful group of people out here, if we know that we're dealing with a story that at its crux involves this individual, Corey Goode, being special, not because he's got expert military training or he can, kick butt and take names, but because he's a super empath, you would expect that individual to act in an empathic nature to the people around him. But from Jump Street, from the time that he had problems getting his story off the ground on Project Avalon and ended up doxing Bill Ryan, to his adventures of how he reacted and responded to the criticisms of guys like me and Joe from the Carolinas and Dark Journalist, he is not an empathic character. In fact, he's quite the opposite. Empathic characters don't have restraining orders brought against them by former employers who had a minor, apparently what seems like started off as a very minor grievance with the individual. People who are super empathic people don't act and behave in indifference to the concerns of people who are being doxxed. And we can look at this guy in real time and we can ask ourselves this critical question. If the Blue Avians did select this guy as an emissary, do we really think the Blue Avians have our best interest at heart?
Right.
Do we really trust the Blue Avians if this is the no offense, the El Ducerino that they're gonna pick to speak for him?
Is this the best and the
Yeah.
brightest?
Yeah, and I do want to do this. There's a short list of activities that he's been involved in that people need to be aware of. First of all, there's a team of people behind him, but let's concentrate on Corey Good in the first place. Talk about an unempathetic action. There's a woman by the name of Yvonne Palermo, Groovy Bean. She's in the live chat actually right now, and she appeared on my channel to talk about her
I
experiences
saw.
with Corey Good and his inner circle. And it's a harrowing story. And what we need to know and understand is Corey Good, knowing that Groovy Bean was legally disabled because she suffered a traumatic brain injury, and anybody who's interacted with her online who has saw her testimony on my show or any of the other shows that she's appeared on, know and understand that despite having to deal with the disability of a traumatic brain injury, like many people have to deal with disabilities, like whether it be primordial dwarfism or cerebral palsy or being in a wheelchair or missing a limb, she's an intelligent, cogent person. She has the ability to carry on conversation. She's obviously an intelligent and articulate person. She's not drooling in the corner. You know what I mean?
Right.
She's a person of skill and integrity. And these
Right.
individuals, because Yvonne Palermo had the audacity of telling the world that, having observed the interactions of Corey Good and his inner circle, had problems with the way that they behaved, their methodologies and their actions, she was repaid by having them send, not having the bravery even of going themselves in front of the camera and saying, you know, we're upset with Yvonne for saying those things, and we're upset for the following reasons. No, they got two little people, Sabrina and Sterling, who had just wandered into their camp. People that actually, should be pointed out, Corey Good actually pressed into service along with Teresa Yaneros to help him move. Don't tell me this guy's not a cult leader. Don't tell me this guy's not a cult leader. He's a highly persuasive, highly manipulative person. I'm not insulting the intelligence and integrity of anyone who falls under his swing. This is what people do. You don't have to feel bad about being conned by a con person. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. He sent out Sabrina and Sterling onto YouTube to go ahead and say to the world, oh, we know that there's this woman, you know, saying things about Corey Good and Roger, but what you need to know about her is maybe don't take her information into account because she suffered a traumatic brain injury. Does that sound like the actions of an empathetic person? I mean, you have to know and understand that Corey Good had to say to himself, hey, you know, Natasha, we do this in life, right? We have disagreements with people in the workplace. We have disagreements with people in our family. And there's plenty of times when the next words out of our mouth could be, oh, yeah, well, you know, you have a drinking problem. Or, yeah, well, everyone knows what you did at the Christmas party with Henry.
Right.
And we catch ourselves and we say, even though I could say that, I'm not going to, because it's classist, it's déclassé, it's wrong, it's rude, it's triggering, it's argumentative, it achieves nothing and defeats the entire purpose of communication. So even though I could say it, I'm not going to say it. But this guy says the first thing that he can say. And he absolutely doxed Joe. He absolutely is behind the doxing. So I just want to let anybody know, and I hope this information eventually gets back to him. We're going to, Natasha, you're going to love me, because I've got the thing that I bring to the CW Chanter channel is the stuff that I'm going to bring here for you tonight. There's new information from Corey Good that we could talk about. There's rumors and innuendo that we could talk about. What if I were to tell you, Natasha, that two credible sources who've established their identities to me and have established that they're close enough within the inner circle of the conference scene and close enough to Corey Good, David Wilcock, and Roger Ramseur that when they tell us that it's without a doubt that Corey Good and Roger Ramseur operate and instruct their team of underlings to go ahead and gather the personal information of individuals like Benjamin Zavadnik, aka CW Chanter, and Joe from the Carolinas, and Dark Journalist, that they are the ones that give the orders to get the information. They're the ones who the information is brought back to, and they're the ones who give the instructions to the SOC accounts, either SOC accounts that they operate themselves personally or SOC accounts that they instruct people to open up to unleash this information upon the world. But that's okay. Maybe that's just the story, but we know this. It's a story that the FBI is interested in. So I hope,
and that's what I want to get to. I want to interrupt you right here. I want to jump in.
No. Help me. The
big question everyone wants to know, and everyone's wondering: is this a crime? Is this going to be actionable? And what's this going to look like?
Well, look, I mean, I'm very wary of, speaking outside of my wheelhouse. I am an attorney at law, but I have a limited practice, a small practice. It's actually a practice I'm thinking about kind of getting out of because it's not really doing for me what I want to do for me. But that personal biographical note aside, is it a crime? Absolutely. Doxing people is a crime. And it not only is it a crime in and of itself, addressed by a lot of different specific state, legislation. Overall, the activity ties into a whole bunch of other well-established crimes, whether it's using the phone lines, whether it's communicating terroristic threats across state lines, which is a federal crime, whether it's committing fraud or intentional infliction of emotional distress. There's absolutely a series of not only criminal offenses. Yeah, there's also civil offenses as well. Believe you me. So, for example, they spread this information about my law firm. If this were to have a negative effect on my income, and believe you me, as a lawyer, I'm not bragging, but I have, it's a decent living. It's not the best living. I'm not making millions of dollars, but I make enough money. And they also decided to put my father's name out there as well. You know what I mean? If this has a direct effect,
it's just low and it's cheap.
Talk about nasty. I mean, you realize I want the people that dox my father to know and understand that despite the fact that the photo that's up on my company's website is of a kind of young, virile man in his early 50s, my father is in his late 80s. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You harassed an old man. Like, I hope you're aware of that. Like, I hope who does this? Who sits there and says, there's 1,000 things that I could say? Ostensibly, here's the allegation. Ostensibly, if me and Joe and Dark Journalist are harassing these individuals, it's very simple and easy to address that. Number one, don't subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't care what we say. Block us on Twitter. Compared to the number of viewers that David Wilcock, Corey Good, and the like have, we are small potatoes. Talk about punching down. So ignore us. Number two, if you think that we're doing something that's wrong or that we're quote unquote doxing you, you go to the authorities. You go ahead and call people and say that they're doing this, that, and the other thing. And I want to know if it's actionable, either civilly or criminally. You can go ahead and do that if you so desire. Just one last thought. The next thing you could do is take on our ideas and concepts, explain to us, engage in the conversation, appear on our channels, accept the invitations to debate, and let's have it out. Let's talk about this. Tell me, explain to me why the Blue Avians would send you on this magical mission with nothing to support your claims. I mean, it's just asking for difficulty. And it seems like if you have the logic that it would take to master interdimensional technology, call me crazy. Maybe I'm assuming a lot here, but I'm assuming that if you were to have the ability to master interdimensional technology to bring you to planet Earth, you would have mastered the art of simple logic to say, hey, some people on planet Earth might want a little bit of evidentiary support other than the rantings and ravings of an individual who Sister, listen, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not insulting anybody. You could have a Jerry Curl in 1985. You might even have a Jerry Curl in 1992. But in 2015, no. You know what I mean? Classy Caesar, you know what I mean? You could have tamed that into a classy Caesar. Just let it go curly and long, baby. But you know what I mean? But looking like you're like the white representative for Soul Glow. is unacceptable in 2015, 16, 17, and 18. Cheap shots, but these guys are engaging in cheap behaviors. If
No,
they don't want
no,
me to
they
hit them
are.
with cheap shots, they shouldn't dox people who work with cancer patients. Talk about
Right.
unempathetic. These geniuses had to gather up the information and realize that they were talking about a dude who was a professional healer, helping people with end of life struggles, helping people with cancer, and they still went on with with doing what they did. And what was the high crime that Joe did? Who did Joe dox? Who did Joe
Right.
dox?
No,
And what did Joe say that
all
was so
Joe did
crazy
was get
cool?
on and do research and state his opinion and present facts.
Right. Apparently, that's not allowed. And talk about people who sully themselves with the crime. You have Jordan Sather, who's going to present himself as a journalist whose actions, number one, are provable that he's in on the deal, he's in on the docs, and we can go through that as well. And then number
Yes.
two, if Joe is acting like a researcher, even if you don't think he's a decent researcher, or even if you don't like the conclusions that he reached, any journalist worth their stones, any journalist worth their salt would not do an attack, would no one understand the importance of, what is it, the fourth estate, would not attack another researcher and journalist in this base and cruel way. And we know, and on a day that there's no way that Jordan Sather could have known about that tweet with the docs without being part of an inner circle who knew and generated that docs, that he did this. Jordan Sather, I'm calling him out. I called him out before. I mean, I'll
Right.
let you go to your point, but just remember this: is that before we were offering $3,000 for him to debate me for 2 hours, saying to him he could guarantee a $3,000 donation to the charity of his choice, the legitimate charity of his choice, and all it would require is 2 hours out of his day, and he can't do that. And then number two, he's going to not only turn down that offer to have his brilliance known to the world, he's also going to participate in the docs of a guy who helps people with end of life struggles. How dare he? Shame on him. Well, then
Yeah,
again, he's just a teenage jerk.
yeah, it's shameful. We're going to get to the culpability of Jordan Sather here in a little bit. I want to turn back. I want to ask you if this situation is a confluence of Gaia TV being bad actors and Corey Good and David Wilcock and Emery Smith and everyone of that ilk being bad actors. So you get all these bad actors together. They have a falling out. I mean, I can't help but think that ultimately this is really just about nothing but money. And something that came to me behind the scenes at a convention, and I'm not even going to name the convention, but someone came to me and they told me a rumor, and that's all it is a rumor, that Gaia brings in approximately $10 million a month from subscriptions. And that's a lot of money. If they really are bringing in, and I don't know whether that is a realistic number or whether that's blown up, but that is what someone told me behind the scenes. And if we're looking at an organization that's bringing in approximately 100 or 120 million dollars a year and not paying their talent, or not profit sharing, whatever it is, all the drama with the employees at Gaia TV, do you think it's that Gaia TV is crooked and Corey Good is crooked, and then when these guys could no longer circle jerk each other and maintain their situation, that they all break up, and now it's really nothing but a desperate attempt on Corey Good and company to try to salvage some kind of career and maintain some income? Do you think it's really just about money?
Well, it's probably not just about money. It's probably you get these people get awarded. They get two dopamine hits. Number one, it is the easy money of just for a living, hanging out on the lecture circuit. You know what I mean? Probably getting your pipes cleaned every once in a while by a starstruck, fan, and you know, unlimited amounts of weed or whatever the case, whatever floats anybody's particular boat. There's probably that dopamine hit of fame and being a big deal, a big fish in a little pond, and there's also the financial stuff. As far as the money that is generated by Gaia TV, Gaia is a publicly traded corporation, and they do have to give quarterly statements, and those quarterly statements are available online. So I think that the person that you spoke to may have had an inflator or sense of what was being generated or not generated, but I could be wrong. For a variety of reasons, they could be holding that back.
Do you think
From my
that's
understanding,
something that you or Dark Journalist or Joe would want to look into, take a peek at that?
The great thing about it is that anyone can take a look at it because the quarterly earnings are available. If you go to Gaia TV and poke around and get past the stuff that's the customer service stuff, you can eventually go to, for example, Jerka, who's the president of the CEO of Gaia TV. I believe gives quarterly statements and quarterly interpretations of those statements to Bloomberg News Network. So those statements are available and people can look at it. And I've looked at it and I've seen numbers that are, look, I mean, but to operate a thing like Gaia TV, to be totally honest, is that I think that Gaia TV is probably a lost leader for the CEO, meaning that he makes X amount of money on his various businesses around the world, and Gaia TV is a pet project. Gaia TV represents something. He's truly an individual who considers himself a seeker. This is a man who got involved in the allegations against Gaia TV. It has to do with the allegations of the commercialization of certain aspects of New Age culture. You know what I mean? Like QVC style selling of magic crystals and rune stones.
Right. Just hawking merch, straight up.
Merch and, the commercialization of yoga, get your patented, Gaia TV yoga mat, you know what I mean? As used by Tommy Yee. Hi, I'm Tommy Yee. And when I do my asanas, I do it to the smooth sounds of Gaia TV's official spring yoga sampler. Hear Kenny G as you downward face that dog. It's like merch. And it's commercialization of a dream. I think it's primarily an entertainment product that's designed to appeal to, the elder boomer 1960s hippie dippy market who have a general amount of loose income. You know what I mean? The Southern California set. And I think that they make probably a fair amount of money, but I think if they were making that much money, if they were making $10 million a month, there's no way in heck that they're not going to pay their talent or get better talent. They wouldn't replace David Wilcock with Jay Widener. They'd replace David Wilcock with Gwyneth Paltrow. She's into all this yuckity schmuckety stuff. You know what I mean? Right. Why would you replace David Wilcock with? You could get George Takei. Hi, I'm George Takei. Science fiction or science fact? Cosmic disclosure. Right.
So how do you think that the platforms of Coast to Coast AM, and I knew that we were going to go to Jimmy Church at some point,
right?
But how do you think those platforms help feed into this? Do you think not on a legal level, do you think they have any culpability in an ethical sense for promulgating this, or do you think it's up to the audience to look at all this stuff and decipher bullshit from the truth?
Here's how I would tackle that. I would give you the benefit of my real world observations. I've been doing this since 2015. So I've seen all this stuff go on. I've been talking to insiders. I've been talking to people who know the players involved. And I'll for each of these people, I could tell you a story of what I know to be the truth and what I understand to be the truth. Here's what happened. David Wilcock hooked up with Gaia TV. David Wilcock was good friends with the CEO of Gaia TV. The CEO of Gaia TV was looking to expand what they were doing with just yoga and the health food and the human potential stuff out into the more esoterica and woo-woo stuff. David Wilcock had a show where he was doing short little segments about forbidden ancient knowledge, esoteric texts of Buddhism, explained the rainbow light body, working off what he had done in 2012, but taking that further and explaining it in a way that was obviously separated out from 2012, which, as we all know, unfortunately, we're still mired down in the third dimension. The fifth dimension and seventh dimension remain a dream yet to be attained. So what ended up happening is that at some point in early 2015, David Wilcock was charged with doing another show. And what he wanted to do was do something that he had done previously with individuals like Drake Bailey, or Pete Peterson, finding people that he quote unquote called his insiders, so that David Wilcock wouldn't have to take responsibility for the information. He was just a conduit of communication. Some of this might have to do with David Wilcock's own inferiority complex. We know that he's tried to do I'm the guy, I'm the speaker, I'm the channeler, and has felt that it didn't work out. I'm the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
At 2015, he was courting a bunch of at least two or three other individuals in addition, at least two other individuals in addition to Corey Good, to be the guy that he was going to bring on to be his next quote unquote whistleblower. One of whom was a guy I know personally, and I may have already mentioned already in the show. Anyway, most of the people that David Wilcock approached understood and knew that there was a big difference between coming out to the Project Avalon community as a contactee, the third person from source, et cetera, some magical Illuminati insider, and the difference between that and coming out and doing things on the real world where you would be seen by friends, family, and potentially a whole bunch of people that would be ready to mock you. Corey Good took the bait. We know that Corey Good went out to LA where David Wilcock wooed him with sushi and maybe a strip club or two. He saw the big scenes. Corey Good is a simple boy out of Texas, hasn't had a lot of success in his life. Not that that's a sin, that's just life. And he went out there, and anyone who saw the early episodes of Cosmic Disclosure know that David Wilcock essentially had to treat Corey Good like a trained SEAL. Corey Good would essentially just sit there kind of staring off into space until prompted with a question or two. It became a big deal. The Blue Avians caught on in people's public imagination. David Wilcock and Corey Good took the act out on the road, appearing at various venues that David Wilcock had obviously previously appeared into himself. And here's where it gets interesting with Jimmy Church. At some point, 2015 turns into 2016, 17, and 18. And by 2017 and 2016, I think it began. David Wilcock, Corey Good, and Jimmy Church kind of became a trio. Jimmy Church featured Corey Good on Fade to Black and Coast to Coast AM more than one occasion. If you want to know statistically, you can look. You can look at these things and do a simple statistical operation to figure out how many times Jimmy Church mentioned Corey Good and Corey Good's narrative versus the narrative of other people. Possible explanations. Jimmy Church is saying, "Hey man, I'm Jimmy Church, and I'm trying to do this thing. And if I want to do this thing, if I'm a concert promoter, I can put on Ornette Coleman, or I can book Kenny G, or whatever. I can book the Grateful Dead, who are going to sell out half the place, or I can book Foghat or whatever, whoever has a hit single, and sell out the whole venue, right? I mean, there could be a business explanation, right? Hey, it's more than a feeling, right? So it could be, there could be a lot, or I forget if it's them or Slow Ride. I forget, it's Slow Ride. Ride. There you go. Hey, take it easy. But you know what I mean? So it could be just that he was doing it for that, but for whatever reason, at some point, there is a culpability that naturally takes a hold, because you have to say to Jimmy Church, like, Jimmy Church, at some point, you're just taking advantage of the promotional push that's being put behind these guys by Gaia TV. But at another level, we have to know that there are plenty of opportunities that Jimmy Church could have said, "Hey, there's other whistleblowers out here," and had Randy Kramer on, had anybody else on. There are plenty of people who claim it to be part of the secret space program that he didn't have on. Instead, he's hanging out at East City Ranch with these dudes. It's all becomes one big circular thing. Right. So stories start to come out. People don't like the way Corey Good is doing things. People don't like the way Corey Good is responding to detractors and adversaries. People don't like what David Wilcock is doing. But what we know is this. At some point, no one really knows what happened. At some point, things really started to sour behind the scenes at Gaia TV. We know a couple of things. One thing that seems to be crucial and critical to understand is the introduction of Emery Smith. Yes. The introduction of Emery Smith. The people need to know and understand. Here's what people don't know about Emery. A lot of people don't know about Emery Smith. Is that prior to hooking up with David Wilcock on Cosmic Disclosure, Emery Smith was very closely associated with another person in the ufology kind of fringe community, an individual by the name of Dr. Stephen Greer. He was Dr. Stephen Greer. He was booked variously as Dr. Stephen's bodyguard, right? He appears in the Atacama What's It videos where he's like credited. Again, it's this development of this story that he's like knows how to dissect things, or is a forensic or forensic expert or extraterrestrial forensic expert, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But what seems to have happened to most people's eyes is the following. David Wilcock at a certain point became aware of the fact that people weren't buying the Blue Avians. And in fact, a crucial point to remember is that at some point, Corey Good was telling the world that the Blue Avians and the Sphere Being Alliance left. He introduced a new cast of characters, primarily developing around or centering around the Ayan Shar, who are us from the future, but they traveled back through time to the past, but they've always been here underneath the ground in Hollow Earth. So it connects to Antarctica mythology and the Hollow Earth mythology, which already is pre-existing. The thing you have to know about
Tom
Corey
Cruise is
Goode,
going to shut it all
it's
down, right?
it's all reinvented. It's all reinvented stuff. It's all stuff that's been taken from the past, like the Shaver mysteries or the Admiral Byrd story over Antarctica. It's all stuff that's borrowed and
Jacking the economic information from Catherine Austin Fitts and incorporating that into the mythology of the story.
Exactly. So, and that's the same old thing. So, at a certain point, it seems as though David Wilcock came to the realization that just like he had abandoned previous whistleblowers that he was touting as the next big thing, Drake Bailey, Benjamin Fulford, etc., the White Dragon Society, just like other narratives, 2012, that he had attached themselves, that Corey Goode was getting a little bit long in the tooth. And at some point, it seemed appropriate to bring a new guy on, Emery Smith. Now, when he brought on Emery Smith, here's the problem. Emery Smith seems to, through the process of going from being a kind of a background player to center stage, seemed, and I'm not trying to diss him, I like him I like his energy, but he does seem
Have
to
you met
have,
him? Do you know him?
no, but he does seem to have kind of cracked under the pressure.
Okay.
That at some point he was not handling it well. He just didn't seem to be able to do it. Just at the same time that Corey Goode was kind of being comfortable talking by himself, appearing without David Wilcock, appearing without Jimmy Church, David Wilcock kind of moved on to Emery Smith. And it seems to be that, and there's background information brought forward by individuals, I think some of whom have told their story already, that they knew that Corey Goode was like, if you bring on Emery Smith, I'm going to fly. And basically, it kind of sounds like he may have. This is what happens to divas sometimes. The diva turns to the background singers and says, "You're just the background singers, and I'm Miss So and So. So peace be upon you. I'm gonna go do a solo career." And the rest of Destiny's Child looks at her and goes, "Go about your business. That's fine." You know what I mean? I bet you I turn into Beyonce, and that's how it turns out. Sometimes you think that you're gonna make this hard stand. Oh yeah. Well, if you don't give me this raise, Mr. So-and-so, I'm out the door. And sometimes Mr.
Right.
So-and-so just turns to you and says, well, it's been nice working with you. Do you know what I mean? Here's your
Right.
gold-plated Rolex watch. Here's a little box to put all your belongings in as you're on your way out the door. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. You know what I mean? Peace be
That's it.
upon you. And it sounds as though when Corey Goode left and Cosmic Disclosure and Gaia TV were kind of looking at the problems that they were running into, remember, it was also around this time that Patty Greer was running all over the place, going crazy and creating all this drama. Rightfully or wrongfully so, she was bringing a lot of attention, making a lot of allegations, and things started to get hairy. And here's my theory. The real professionals at Gaia TV, the people that used to work at Viacom, the people
Mm-hmm.
that used to work at Whole Foods in their IT departments, the real movers and shakers turned to the CEO and said, "It's been fun. We've had our adventures. Ancient aliens ain't that a thing? But you know what? You know what? This bad publicity is not worth it. They're accusing us of being satanic organization. They're accusing us of using directed energy weapon. You got shenanigans all over here with this healer and that healer. How about this? How about we just act as like a company for once in a while? And let's let David Wilcock and Corey Goode leave." And knowing that his contract was up and knowing that the contract was not going to be renewed, David Wilcock went out in the proverbial blaze of sour grapes, leaking. How did Laura Eisenhower ever get that private letter to circulate on Facebook that was totally only intended? How do you lose an email? It's one thing,
Right.
a physical piece of correspondence can be stolen, but an
Yeah.
email that you intend to send to one party just so happens not to get to that party, but rather gets all over God's green creation. And you're doing this whole hissy fit of saying this and that, accusing everyone of Satanism at the exact same time when your young protege, Jordan Sather's taking off like a bullet, riding that Q train that is
Yep.
entirely centered on mainstream, red meat, Christian, evangelical, all American, white politics. All of a
Yes.
sudden, you want to get on that train too? What are you going to do if you're David Wilcock? Oh, all of a sudden you start to see the light, and you're telling people like Jimmy Church that Donald Trump is the alliance president, even though we know that you supported Barack Obama in the past, and we're saying that he was going to be the disclosure president. Now all of a sudden you're trying to get on the Trump train. Well, you're going to have a hard time doing that when you're the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, but you might have an easier time if all of a sudden you see the light and want to turn your back on all that. And what a public way to do that. And if you don't think that the evangelical community hasn't heard that, they do. There's a hashtag called Pray for David, where there's a series of evangelical YouTube content creators who are actively courting. They think they're watching David Wilcock make the transformation, that he's going to become born again, and he's going to appear on, with Jimmy Swaggart and,
He'll be in Costa Mesa at
you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely.
Heritage, yeah.
You know what I mean? Natasha, I was lost. Demons possessed me. They told me I was the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. But now I saw the lights, and then ba. And then so that leaves Emery Smith. Yeah, that leaves Emery Smith to the wolves, because so all of a sudden you found this position where David Wilcock is in the wild. Do David Wilcock and Corey Good still communicate? People knew that they were the dynamic duo for a while. The rumor is there's a lot of friction there. And the rumor is that Gaia, the highly litigious organization that they are, might be having other lawsuits that are going to drop pretty soon too, regarding other things like contract reneging, or violation of non-disclosure agreements, et cetera, et cetera. Make of those legal claims what you will. Rumors and innuendos, vibing around the velvet gold mine,
and general labor problems as well. Yes. Just generalized labor complaints in a very traditional sense.
The same old things that happen in real world corporations. I tell all these people that think that they're, telling these fantastical stories. You can tell all the fantastical stories you want to in the conference, at these various conferences. You got Corey Good saying out here that he's going to sue people for libel and slander. Good luck with that. You mean you think you're going to get a jury of all American citizens who are going to listen to your nonsense tales of blue avians, and they're going to say that anybody defamed you by pointing out the fact that your story is ridiculous? You're going to be charged with attorney's fees. And meanwhile, that's the other thing I talked about. Don't be scared of these people. These people have bled out all their money. Corey Good is in the wild. Here's what happened. These people started believing their own BS. This happens. They thought they were a real big deal. They thought that it wasn't Gaia, it was them. And I said, wait till Corey Good wakes up on planet Earth and realizes that he's one amongst many. Third phase of the moon, have him on. Third phase on the moon are going to have Randy Kramer on, Andrew Bashago, Alfred Lambermont Weber, Michael Tellinger, Michael Tessarion. They're going to have everyone else on there too. Elena, Alana, the various, Russian gals. There's 1,003 people. James Casbolt's eventually going to get out of prison. They're going to have James Rink on, the various super soldiers, Duncan O'Finian. He is one amongst many, and he thought that he was going to keep on doing what he's going to do. I don't think that that's the case. The other thing that happened is that his business partner, Roger, what's his real name? Nobody really knows. Some variation on Roger, some variation on Richard, some variation on Ramsour. Thought that his Full Disclosure Project was going to be $1 million seller too. He thought he was going to make this amazing movie called Above Majestic, which everyone who's seen it so far has told me is doggerel, has told me is an absolute YouTube joke of a production. And they thought that they were going to be real. They thought they were going to go out to Hollywood, sell their comic book to Marvel, sell their comic book to DC, get movie rights, do a TV show on Netflix. They thought they had $1 million dreams. Well, guess what? Just like a lot of other jokers that pack up the band equipment into a white U-Haul van to go out to LA or Seattle to make it, you know what? There's a lot of people that are going to go out to LA and New York and Seattle, or London, or or Barcelona, with big dreams of making it happen, whether it's in film, in movies, in acting, in whatever, stand-up comedy, whatever. And a lot of people end up going back home after a while because it's a tough dog-eat-dog world, and not everyone who thinks that they want to make it is going to have the tools and the talent and the opportunities and the luck to actually make it. So I think that a lot of what we're seeing right now is this organization falling apart and splintering at the seams. Corey Good on his best day was a nefarious and negative actor who used to lash out in reactionary ways against people that would give him even the slightest criticism. That's his reputation from high school, and all of his high school classmates are on Facebook telling the truth about Corey Good. If you care to tune in and listen, they were all waiting for him to show up at the high school reunion so they could ask him to his face, what are you doing? And are you effing serious? And
Right.
so we're seeing this now. So I think this doxing is very desperate moves. So example, they're getting annihilated over the doxing of Joe.
Yeah.
Annihilated online about it.
What have you heard
Right?
about Jimmy Church saying anything or replying about this?
Well,
Was
here's
there some response earlier in the day from Jimmy?
there was. He came out basically. He did a tweet basically decrying the action of doxing and specifically counteracting the narrative that was put forth by Jordan Sather that, oh no, I didn't dox anyone, I just retweeted somebody's stuff with public information. I mean, look, we all have public information. Technically, your name is on your driver's license. Does that mean that someone
Right.
can take that information and put it online on the justification of, well, it's on your driver's license? Well, yeah,
Right.
if you go to college in America, your student ID is always your social security number. Does that mean they have the right to go get your college records and then put your social security number out there? It's a dox. It's a spraying of personal information for one reason and one reason only, and that's to make your critic's life hard, to intimidate them, to scare them to go off the internet, to scare them. Remember that this dox included a link, an at link to the place where this person who works with cancer survivors and people who are dealing with cancer works. What is the intention of that? Is the intention of that because they think it's very important that this cancer facility and research hospital know and understand that they've got someone on their staff who's smart enough to know that Corey Good is an idiot telling ridiculous stories to morons. I'm
We
sorry. You know what I mean? It's just
No,
crazy.
no, and I'd like you to detail real quick while we're right on that. Please detail for the audience the supporting evidence that Jordan Sather used a puppet account that actually he created. Can you tell
We,
everyone a little
we,
bit about
we
what's behind that?
Well, here's what we know is that was coming out is that people that are on the inside are saying that these sock accounts that are specifically, it's like the Thomas Crown with a numerical designation behind it. There's also an individual that's going by the name of like Organa Alejandra, whatever, something that she uses apparently she uses well, I've seen her. She uses a Princess Leia avatar, as her thing. And what happened specifically with the docs of Joe was the following. An individual that had just had an account that was set up just this month or in October of 2018. So it was at the tail end of October, beginning of November. An account that was just set up released a very highly detailed docs of Joe that included his location, videos of him on YouTube, as well as a document that was purported to be a criminal record that involved like a personal restraining order for a domestic violence cause. The situation is this, is that if they had looked at that document, they would have realized that the subject of that document was in their 70s. There's no way that that's Joe. So they had the wrong docs, and it also didn't attest, meaning that the person that sought the restraining order didn't get it. So there's no evidence to suggest that it's even Joe, and it's no evidence to suggest that even if it was Joe, that it was anything other than a possibly frivolous claim. And anyone who knows anything about domestic violence causes of action, judges, prosecutors, and cops are very, very quick to give someone a restraining order, especially in cases of domestic violence, because they don't want to be potentially responsible or legally liable or personally, emotionally liable if they fail to act and someone gets really, really hurt. So the fact that this domestic violence thing didn't lead to anything, but you have these super geniuses of the millennium on Twitter saying that this document proves that Joe beat a woman. There's no sex given for the assailant, for the person. There's no detail saying that this was about battery or grievous assault or a long-term situation involving domestic violence of any kind. And like we said, there's reason to believe that anyone should have known if they looked at the details that this wasn't Joe. And then in addition to that, they get personal videos of him talking about his work, the link and the phone number to his workplace, et cetera, the address of where he works, et cetera. And they put that into a highly detailed tweet. that they then release onto the internet. This individual, this original account that put this stuff on Twitter, was a very, very small account with a very, very few, not only a very, very tiny number of followers, but that actually only followed a very select group of people, including Jordan Sather, Corey Good, etc. The coterie of people that you would expect, and of course, President Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Hail
Right.
Trump. You know what I mean? And all this stuff. So we have to believe that on the day of the midterm elections, when Jordan Sather was highly active on Twitter, he managed to see a retweet, because he was added in the tweet, of this docs with personal information of Corey Good, and that all these. So for guys and gals like you and me, our Twitter feed is, if we put it down, if we've got a fair amount of people following us, we pick it up after an hour or whatever. For me, like, I'll do this. I'll prove this. Like, I picked this up right before we got on, and so if I pick it up, I've got just 6 notifications or whatever. If I leave it for an hour or two, I'll oftentimes find myself with about 20-24. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's because I've got 3,000 whatever subscribers on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Not saying I'm a big deal. In fact, I'm not a big deal. I'm a small deal. We were talking to Unirock, who's about 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he says that he gets about 100 retweets, likes, and notifications on Twitter if he puts his phone down for an hour and 20 minutes. Jordan Sather has 66.8 thousand followers. If he turns on Twitter, his notifications literally go like this. There's no way he can manually check. So there's no way in God's green creation that he saw this docs randomly. And even if he did, Natasha, he had to look at it, identify it, see it for what it was, and decide to retweet it to 66,000 followers, and then also put it onto Facebook. So he affirmatively doxed Joe. He did. Okay? And not only that, there's no way in heck that he's going to be able to establish or prove to anybody who knows anything about social media and internet communications that he just randomly saw that.
So who is Jordan Sather? Where did he come from? How did he get involved in all this? And now let's start digging into him a little bit.
Absolutely.
Who the fuck is this guy? Who the fuck is he? Where did he come from? And how did he get in the middle of all this? And the follow-up for that is, what does he have to gain from all this?
Well, it's very interesting, because here's where it gets to interpersonal things, and you have to understand that it could be loyalty. We could be dealing with combinations of complex things of loyalty, or maybe things that people have things on him, or he's scared of getting people angry or wrong, or he might be acting a little bit desperate too, because remember, he's famous now for QAnon, and the QAnon thing has been revealed as a LARP. Yeah, it's so unfortunate that people still believe in it, but it's like people still believing in the tooth fairy. You know what I mean? Santa Claus, I hate to break it to you, sister, but Santa Claus isn't real. Right. You know what I mean? That's just dad in a red suit. It is what it is. We just hope he's not drinking again, right? So when it comes to Jordan Sather was an extremely minor character with a very small YouTube channel. He started going out to places like Mount Shasta, where people were having these conferences, these very small conferences around guys like Rob Potter, where guys like Corey Good was getting his first appearances. And Jordan Sather met a couple of key players, Yvonne Palermo, Roger Ramsour, Jason Quitt, Corey Good, and David Wilcock, etc. He became an acolyte of Corey Good. His channel, Destroying the Illusion, was covering things like various new age things like Organite and, secret space programs and ufology and all this stuff. But it was very, very small. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he was hanging out with Corey Good. And when he started hanging out with Corey Good, his channel started to grow, because he'd have an insider link to start talking to people like William Tompkins and Michael Salla. So he was getting a push, and he was getting involved, and people were having him on, et cetera, et cetera. And so there he was, clearly a member of what was disparagingly and patronizingly known as Corey's Kids. Him, Teresa Llaneros, Jesse Duchamps of Stillness of the Storm, Sabrina and Sterling that we've already mentioned. These were people that were identified by dark journalists in his first coverage of Corey Good and the Corey Good problem as quote unquote Corey's kids. Okay, make of that what you will. Jordan Sather and Teresa Neros are both in their 30s. You know what I mean? These aren't kids. You know what I mean? It's
Right. Right.
but they still might as well be. They still might as well be because 30 is not that old. You know what I mean? 30 might be old enough to feeling old, but you know, I mean, it's really not, especially in today's day and age where a lot of people end up living to be 100. Anyway,
True.
Corey
True.
Good, Jordan Sather, rather, all of a sudden did a left turn. He was one of the first people to get involved in Q. By some accounts, he may be the second or third person on YouTube to actually start covering Q. Then he got a sudden shot in the arm of absolute gold when none other than Roger Stone interviewed
No
him
shit.
about Q on InfoWars, Alex
I had
Jones's
I had no
intellectual pro.
idea. This is
That's
news.
where that's the inside. That's the track. That's you know what I mean. That's the discovery. That's the discovery of Bruce Springsteen at some small concert hall in Asbury Park. This is Jimi Hendrix, decided on a lark to move over to London to see if he can get a band started over there and getting seen by guys like
Right.
Pete Moon and you know what I mean, like not Peter, like the Keith Moon from the drummer from the Who, and the big break. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He caught a big break with that, and he was off to the races. And he went from being a channel with a couple of thousand subscribers to having 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 subscribers. And I don't know where he's at now. So he's up
Does he
there.
sell books or T-shirts? Is he selling anything, or does he just have a channel?
I think I know there's got to be merch. I think there's got to be merch. I don't pay a lot of attention because there's certain people that I should pay attention to stay on the scene, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't because I just can't endure it. And he says all
Right.
sorts of foolishness. This is a guy who's telling people that he's hawking cancer cures, and it's the same new age cancer cures that people have been dying using since 1972. The coffee
Mm-hmm.
enemas, the crystal healing, the psychic surgery in Brazil. It's all
Right.
this stuff that, no offense, is just unfortunately, wouldn't it be fantastic if it worked? It just doesn't work.
It's shit
Unfortunately,
that Penn and Teller shot down a long time ago.
stuff, yeah. And when they did it, it was already stuff that was well outdated as well. You know what I mean? So this is who Jordan Sather is, and this is what goes on. So I have a hard time tuning in, but in today's day and age, if people love you, and especially if you're selling them that hopium, QAnon is highly politically charged, red meat America, evangelical hopium. All those jerks, those homo, commie, pinko, liberal, SJW, funky hair colored jerks from LA and New York, well, guess what? They're all going to get arrested. They're going to be
Right.
on that military tribunal. You know what I mean? And it's going to go back to the 10 Commandments on the public square and just Christmas, just Christmas. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And Patriots rule and liberals drool. You know what I mean? Take that. And, Donald Trump is the second coming of George Washington. You know what I mean? And JFK Jr. never died. He's hanging out, you know what I mean, in a fedora, selling bumper stickers. It's this craziness. You know what I mean? And it turns out to be a total LARP. Like most things that came out of 4chan and 8chan, it's a bunch of people tweaking people and having a grand old time behind the scenes, LARPing it up. There's nothing there. There's nothing
Right.
there. But so Jordan Sather might be in a position where he knows he might need to be working some transitions. We know that he used to be Q, 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 Q. And slowly but surely, it's starting to open back up into the secret space program stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of indications that he might know the people that are actually coding and putting up the Q posts now, which is why we see these kind of ephemeral, kind of cryptic allusions to secret space programs in the Q materials, which of course is the consternation of many people because they don't want to hear about that stuff because they think that stuff is antithetical to red, white, and blue, grandma's apple pie, and Jesus Christ. So it is. So it's a very strange time for people to be alive, and I don't know if these people are going to be able to deal with the fact of this. Fame is fleeting.
Yeah.
Fame is fleeting. of all the people that contend on YouTube, very few people are going to turn out to be Casey Neistat or PewDiePie or Alex Jones or whoever. The
Right.
vast majority of people who play this game are going to play this game for a while. I have no illusions about it myself. Who are going to reach one sort of level of fame, and then eventually you're going to have to go back and just realize and understand something. If you can write books, fantastic. If you can entertain people in a lecture circuit, so much the better. If you can get a day job, hold on to it, because
No
fame is
shit.
fleeting, and chances are you're not going to be able to support yourself on Patreon money, because the Patreon money might not be there forever.
Right.
Look, if we go through another 2008, which is a lot of the problem that a lot of these people got desperate with in the first place. When people have money and things are loosey-goosey and fine and fantastic, people are willing to throw down money on Patreon support. They're willing to buy books and crystals and go to this convention and that convention. When money gets tight, and a lot of these new age people have a choice between paying, let's face it, the weed man and their liquor bill, or going to contact in the desert. Guess what? They're going to choose to go to the contact in the desert in their minds, right? Just throw on that old VHS copy of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know what I mean? Take a couple of puffs and just like watch the patterns on the wall. Just start dancing.
Puff,
right?
Puff, pass.
That's it. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And don't Bogart Bashar. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. And so
to
that's
this
it.
round,
So that's it comes around. So Jordan Sather still has loyalty though to Corey Good.
But how did he wind up being Corey Good's lapdog? How did he wind up doing that? And how did he wind up being in a position to do shit like dox people on behalf of Corey Good? How did he wind up there?
So we know that he, at a certain point, he could have gone out from underneath these people, gone out on his own, and done his own thing. However, we still see him acting closely in concert with Corey Good. I'll give you a perfect example from recent history. Jason Rice was featured on an episode of Cosmic Disclosure after David Wilcock went off in a blaze of sour grapes. After Corey Good was given his walking papers, did Cosmic Disclosure end? No. They had new whistleblowers, not Emery Smith. They came out with an individual named Jason Rice. The minute Jason Rice came out, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to mention Teresa Yaneros, even though she's making moves outwards. And, we're going to have to talk about Teresa Yaneros because she's the one might end up coming out of this thing with the real winner. And I don't hate on her for that. God bless her, but she might absolutely get away she might just get away scot-free with a whole bunch of stuff. But when it comes to Jason Rice came out, and there were 3 statements given out on 3 different social media platforms. Corey Good came out with one statement on Facebook where he basically said, watch out for SSP false flag whistleblowers were infiltrated. They're not mentioning Jason Rice by name, but might as well name Jason Rice by name. It's like if I had a bad experience on this channel and then went around going, I'm not trying to say anything, but let's just say there's certain individuals with funky hair colors and even funkier blouses that you might not want to get around a round crystal light structure with. You know what I mean? Watch out for Babasha Bix, you know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Do everything but say the name, right? So Jason Rice comes out at exactly. Hey, watch out! There you go. Well, there's some people that'll get you for that. See, not only is she interviewing Satan himself. Welcome to the Dark Alliance, by the way. I should have given you the official opening ceremony, but in the name of the powers of great darkness and deviltry, you sacrificed the baby, right? Under the blood red moon, you sacrificed the baby, right? You ate it,
absolutely.
Ate the blood, of course. Well, you're in. There you go. Just wanted to make sure. I really should double check with you. You know what I mean? So Satan welcomes you into his dark embrace. He of the cloven hoof. The Black Mass is going to be on. We already, had to miss it, unfortunately, because Corey Good and his damn white lights. I know, right? And we joke, but officially welcome to the Dark Alliance. But anyway, so we know that after Corey Good made that statement on Facebook, Teresa Yaneros made a very quick, and she denies my interpretation of it, but a statement on Twitter that was nearly identical in basically calling it, saying that she had taken a 3 and back, implying that Jason Rice was just a rehash of the Corey Good material, that he was quote unquote stealing the Corey Good material. And we know that Jordan Sather did a long piece on YouTube saying the same thing, going through and saying why he didn't believe Jason Rice and why he believes Corey Good. So where does the loyalty lie? I think in order to get to that real question, you would really, really have to have someone who was intimately involved with Jordan Sather come out and tell the truth about, and I hate to do this, but it might be one of these things. What's his relationship like with his father? Did he grow up with older brothers? Does he have secrets? Do people know things about him? Do people know things about his past? I don't know what those answers are. To me, where I'm sitting, looking at Jordan Sather, I look at his loyalty to Corey Good and David Wilcock, and I think that it's inscrutable. But having said that, I almost missed this. Roger Ramsour came out with this movie, Above Majestic, that was going to be highly promoted on October 31st.
Mm-hmm.
Who is one of the quote unquote stars of Above Majestic? It's Jordan Sather. So we know he's absolutely financially involved. He probably has a stake in the financial success of Above Majestic. If Above Majestic takes off and there's going to be a part 2, or if there's going to be a speaking tour, or if, God forbid, fingers crossed, if it gets picked up by Netflix to be a series, woo! Right. You know what? I think we may have just answered our own question. So that's the real deep part. It's all business. It's business being done by yahoos. These are not individuals who, by the strength of their merit and the strength of their brow, were able to be. Well, the case of Roger has his own business that apparently an import-export thing. So I don't know what his story is. But for the most part, these are people that are chancers and romancers, that they were on the sidelines of life. We know that Corey Good, his last employment was with an IT company where he was around there for about 7 weeks, not even 2 months. And that was the last job that we know that's on the public record that we know about. So this is a guy that had to have been in desperate financial straits before he hooked up with David Wilcock. And I think these people are going to start panicking. Remember, Marvel Comics themselves, not even Marvel Comics, Marvel Industries, with the movies and the comic books and the $1 million lawyers who literally shit gold, right? Mm-hmm. Are interested now in Corey Good's trademarks. And as I said in my channel talking about this, if they think they're just going to do a cease and desist on his seeking of his trademark, no, the grounds for seeking a cease and desist on his trademark is that it interferes with one of their trademarks, which means they're going to take all of those graphic novels that they spent so much money to print, and baby, they're all going into the fire. Yeah. They're all going into the fire.
Do you think that'll bankrupt him fighting them in court? Do you think that'll
there's not going to be
with everybody else?
Listen, I'm a solo practitioner. If you call my law office, you know who picks up the phone? Me. So I've got a lot of respect for solo practitioners. You know who's a solo practitioner with less than 5 years of experience? It's Teresa Inaros' sister, who's the current IP lawyer for Corey Good. Her website is a WordPress blog page. Okay. God bless her. Mm-hmm. God bless her. If you want to contact her, you send her an email. The place where her office is, I think, is one of these places. She calls it a boutique law practice. Well, I call myself a boutique law practice too. You turn on my YouTube channel, you see my office. That's what boutique really means. Okay, boutique means small. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so God bless the small solo practitioner, but the notion that she's going to be able to counteract or box with the IP attorneys, and we don't even know if Corey Good has the capability. We don't even know if she's got bills outstanding for him already. We don't know if he's paying the bills or not. He talks big that he's going to bring this lawsuit or that lawsuit. We know this. Here's a couple of high-priced donators were paying for his rented house. He's living on borrowed time. If some of these guys pass away, if some of these guys get divorced and lose all their money to their frosted blonde wife, or et cetera, these guys are going to be in a world of hurt. David Wilcock moved from a very posh kind of living in Malibu, California, to go out to live in Colorado. Was some of that to be closer to Gaia? Sure. Was some of that decision based on the fact that it's a lot cheaper to live in some places in Colorado where he doesn't even have good internet?
Oh, hell's to the yes. Have you
You know what
paid
I
rent
mean?
in
You'd
Southern
rather live out.
California?
Yeah. Hey, exactly. You go out there, if you just stand around, someone comes up and charges you rent. Do you
That's
know what I
right.
mean?
Exactly.
It,
You've been standing here
it
too
costs
long,
a ton
brother.
of money. It costs, listen, sister, it costs a ton of money to be homeless in LA. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It
Oh,
costs a
oh
ton
yeah.
of money to be homeless in LA. You know what I mean? The soup kitchens charge. I mean, it's incredible, what it's like in some places. So I think we're going to see a lot of things. And like I said, not only is Marvel looking to end up looking to sue this guy, and he's not going to be able to fight them. All this thing is just kind of wrapped up. Hey, why did that masquerade ball on October 31st get canceled? Did it get did it get canceled because they were going to be infiltrated by the Dark
Cliff
Alliance
high.
and Cabal? Yeah, I know. I saw that. Cute. You know what I
Come on,
mean?
trophy
No.
wives.
Hey, listen, someone's got to bang the trophy wives. You know what I mean? And it's usually the
That's
rich
right.
guys that are paying Corey kids' bills. Anyway,
Boom,
back to
boom.
Touch. Is this thing on?
Hey, I have another
Trophy
one for you.
wives.
Jordan
It
Sather.
costs a lot of money to be homeless in LA, huh?
Jordan Sather loves the Wilcock. There you go.
Oh. Oh, there you go. Hey, be careful. You know what I mean? We'll never play college
Oh no, that's
campuses,
my
right?
that's my promo, baby. That's my promo out of
There
this.
you
What are you
go.
talking about? That's going on the
She
reel.
just hit it. That's it. That's going on the exactly. I don't know why. And everyone's gonna sit there going, "Oh, Wilcock." I don't know. We're gonna workshop it. We're like
Wilcock, probably won't. But
we've got
anyway,
ba-da-da.
so what should
Yikes.
happen to Jordan Sather? What should happen to him? What should be the consequences? What penalties, whether they be social or legal, should he face? What should happen next?
Okay, well, from a legal standpoint, we need to know and understand that depending on who you dox and depending on the position they hold and the litigation and the laws involved, there might be a lot of different consequences. Okay. If you dox somebody who's garbage, I'm not saying this is the way that it should be, but it often is the way that it is. There's different laws in places that protect different people who work in different fields. I don't know, and I haven't done the specific research, but what I would suggest is that from a legal standpoint, is there possible criminal liabilities? Absolutely. Are there potential civil liabilities? Absolutely. If the man in question who got doxxed suffers the loss of a job, or if his spouse or loved one suffer the loss of job, or they get harassed and need to go buy extra security, absolutely they could bring a lawsuit against Jordan Sather for civil damages, and there could be criminal liabilities as well. In addition to that, as far as what should happen morally and ethically, here's what I'll say. It might not be the fact that morally and ethically he should accept the challenge to debate May, but I certainly he should think that he should be man enough to appear on Joe's channel and answer and explain himself why he thought that he was justified. What on earth would make him think that he was justified? How mad and pissed off was he be to feel that what Joe was doing was so quote unquote categorically evil that it required extreme recourse and response. There's no justification for what happened to Joe. None at all. So what should I think should happen to Jordan Sather? I would like it if now here's what's difficult about it. I would love it to say that what should happen is that the truth of what he's done should be exposed to all of his Twitter followers, all of his Facebook fans, and all of his subscribers on YouTube. Now here's the heartbreak. Even if it were the case that the truth of what he did was exposed to all these individuals, the truth is that probably a very small percentage of those people would see the light and decide to unsubscribe, unfollow, or remove their Patreon support. It's much more likely that these people would say, "So what? That's not even doxing." Yeah, well, maybe you guys shouldn't have started it first because, what's your problem with Corey Good anyway? He's totally cool. You're a jerk, CW Chanter, or should I say, lawyer CW Chanter. And it's like, ooh, wicked burn. Natasha? I don't know if you're aware of this. They doxed me today.
Yeah, you mentioned that at the top of the show.
Yeah, they literally did to Joe what did to me they did to Joe. They put out portions of my website, put out my real name, Unfortunately for them, I don't think that they
Right
know
here.
and understood. Exactly. I don't think that they knew and understood that literally months ago, in response to another troll on YouTube and Twitter, rather than live my life in fear that somebody was going to release my name, I released my own name. My name is Benjamin Isaac Zavodnik. You want to look me up? Look me up. Do I have lawsuits against me? Yeah, absolutely, because I'm a businessman alive in America. People get sued. People have problems. Some of these cases resolved. I've brought lawsuits. Lawsuits have been brought against me. I've sued other individual people. There have been breakdown in personal businesses and family law firms. All that stuff's out there if you want to look it up. And all I say to the world that wants to look it up is this: why are you looking at that stuff? What do you care?
Right.
What have I done that you think is that? And it's people just want to get involved. They want to
Right.
get involved. They want to feel like they're part of the party. They want to feel this is why gangs work. This is why people would be willing to sacrifice their lives to protect a couple of square blocks in a rundown, beat up neighborhood with rented properties that people don't even have equity in. It's
Do you
just this
think
silly desire to be involved.
do you think Corey Good has a responsibility to publicly denounce Jordan Sather and his actions?
You would think so, but Jordan Sather learned this from. I learned it by watching you, Corey. I learned it by watching you. This is Corey Good's MO. If you don't mind, what I would like to do at this point is I would like to
This
point
is
out
your brain on
statements.
Sphere being a
Yeah, yeah.
lion. No, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, yeah. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. People send me. See, this is the other thing is that everyone thinks that they're sending me helpful information, but they send me helpful information, and some of it's just like I don't know what it's supposed to do. Let me see if I can find this thing. So basically, someone shared with me, and I shared Corey Good's Facebook post from earlier in the day, and I think analyzing it is very interesting. Well, this is a hold on, let's see what's going on. Okay, here we go. This is from Facebook earlier today. It comes in two parts. Number one, it's from James Corey Good. It says, "Doxing the doxers. They dox all of us and cry foul when they are doxed. Wonder why this is? Question mark. Citizen journalists are tired of the lies and psychological operations this group has been using on the community. This is more karmic than anything, if you ask me." Next part, James Corey Good. "Crazy how this dark alliance doxed people in this community and then spread lies based on them and then cry foul if their alleged dirty secrets come out. I and my team have been the most heavily doxed people in ufology history. The most slandered people to ever enter the field or this community. Exclamation point.
And one of the biggest fucking
Yeah,
liars, and
right.
that's why.
Citizen journalists are doxing and using other methods of trying to figure out what is going on. No one has ever seen this level of character assassination. The simple fact is, if they live in these glass houses, they shouldn't throw rocks. They are drawing all of this attention to themselves and their personal lives by attacking those of others. This is karma, in my humble opinion. When citizen journalists researched the Dark Alliance claims about me, they found nothing but their lies. Oh yeah, citizens journalists did all sorts of research on Corey Good and found out that what? The restraining order isn't real. The restraining order is real, dude. What do you think
Right.
you're going to lie about this stuff for? This
Do you
most
know
likely
who
caused
got
them.
that restraining order against him? Do you know who that was?
Who?
Not,
What?
I'm not asking you to name them, but do you know
Yeah,
who?
no, everybody knows who they are. My friend Brandon Young on his YouTube channel read the whole restraining order. I mean, it exists. Dark journalists covered it. He was at a company
Okay.
for less than 2 months. He did a psychedelic freak out. He started making these YouTube videos accusing them of stalking him and leaving metal back scratchers on their yard. It's a laughable, ridiculous situation. The most likely caused them to pivot and begin investigating the investigators. Again, we know the truth. These are not citizen journalists. This is you, Corey Good. This is you and your inner circle of people. Stop trying to pretend. And he's lying to people. He's lying to his own community. They look to what they're finding. People across you. People accuse you of that which they do. Listen closer to these people's accusations from now on. You may learn quite a lot about them and their motives. There's a lot of coordination going on in the background, and people are coming forward with info. Yeah, he knows that people are leaving him. This is why he's trying to threaten all these people. I have stated previously, the First Amendment does not give one the right to slander or libel a person, public figure or not. Who has slandered you? Who has
Right.
libeled you? No one has said anything that's not true. People are
Right.
stating their opinion about your story. I have stated previously.
Do you think that's the mentality of fake news bleeding over into this arena?
Well, no. Well, the mentality of fake news is once you do that, once you have that grenade to toss around and play with, then you can just accuse everything of fake news. Like, look at this.
Right.
It's them. It's they're not doing this. They're not just people that are talking about me. They're dark alliance. They're dark cabal. It's this thing. It's this hyperinflated, hyperbolic way of speaking about yourselves and your adversaries to give yourself a sense of self-importance and a sense of and it's narcissistic masturbation.
Yes.
But so lawsuits or slander may upset some in this field as TMs did, but it may prevent trolls from doing this to others in the future. So out of the goodness, he doesn't want to sue anyone, Natasha, but he just might
Right.
have to.
For the good of everyone.
Yeah, ufology has been completely infiltrated by Air Force intelligence and various corporations who then divided and conquered this community. The more that is revealed, the greater the shock will grow in this community. Good luck to us all. So look, I mean, it's just hyperbolic BS. It's just hyperbolic BS. That's all it is. And the whole thing is coming across at the scenes. Is he's going to bring cases for libel and slander? I would love it if he did. I've said it before and I said it again.
Oh, yeah.
I would love it if he sued me. Here's the deal. I live, I'm on the East Coast over here. If he wants to sue me for libel or slander, according to the laws of the United States, he has to get jurisdiction over me. Means he can't file a federal lawsuit in Colorado. Based on diversity of jurisdiction that we live in different states, he has to sue me in New Jersey. Okay, he has to sue me in the state where I reside. So what is he going to do? Long distance litigation against me, and that's fine because I'll immediately turn around and countersue him. Right. And once I countersue him, guess who gets to take Corey Goode's deposition under oath? Where if he lies, he's committed a criminal infraction. Good old CW Chanter.
And good luck with what that testimony is going to look like.
Exactly. And guess what? The other thing is this: is that deposition testimony are not sealed documents unless both parties, assess or it's judged by a judge that they should be sealed. So those are public documents in the public domain. I would immediately take that deposition transcript and be a hit. I'd get interviewed on Project Camelot. I would be on Coast to Coast AM. I'd be all over the place because I'd have the deets on all this stuff where I'd be able to ask him intimate questions like when you did this, or you said this about the sphere being aligned, you said this about the blue avians. Who can attest to this? Who said this? Who did this? Who opened this sock account? Did you ever know? Did you ever speak out against the doxing? If you didn't speak out against the doxing, why not? It goes on and it goes on and it goes on. Nothing's going to happen of this. Corey Goode is going to burn through this. He's going to burn through this. He's going to understand that there's no second community to start. Okay, the theory is going to be they know that they've got problems, that without Gaia, they're going to have a hard time holding on to their subscription base. They know they're going to have a hard time motivating these part-timers. There are people that are going to get involved in the nitty-gritty of YouTube who are going to find the small channels with less than a bajillion subscribers, who are going to go down and tune in all the time for all the minutia of the stories. The most part, these people are going to watch this stuff and they're going to subscribe like people watch Ancient Aliens. Yeah, you'll put it on your TiVo. Yeah, you'll binge watch a couple of episodes at a time. But if it doesn't come on for another season, that's okay. You'll just go back to reruns of the X-Files.
Right. And there's something else I'd like you to address. I kind of want to address the obvious. I think all of us who are out here thinking about this can see how this damages our community. But for the sake of the audience, I would like you to articulate just what kind of damage these types of people, these types of actors, what damage do they do to ufology? How do they hurt the study of this? What damage are they doing? And this is beyond the actual doxing of someone. That stands as fucking crime.
Right.
But in terms of ethics and morals and all of our larger obligation to this community, how are they damaging it by doing what they're doing?
Okay, so this is the best argument about this comes from Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan was one of the first people to speak out against Corey Goode, and he did it in a very delicate and beautiful way. Well, what happened was that Richard Dolan was often finding himself at conferences where he was sharing a stage with the likes of Corey Goode, specifically Corey Goode and David Wilcock. And Richard Dolan has always done this. He always speaks out against channeled information. He always speaks out about the notion of the claims about the study of exopolitics, as if it's established, the parameters of man and alien interaction have been established to the degree that they could be doing this. He also knows the historicity of individuals like George Adamski, who might have been put into ufology for a very specific reason, and that is to make a laughing stock of it. So when we look at Corey Goode and the secret space program researcher, we look at Corey Goode and ufology in general, we know, looking at the works and the arguments articulated by Richard Dolan and Daniel List, the dark journalist, a very specific, cogent argument, and Walter Bosley as well, a very cogent argument about what Corey Goode could possibly be and what Corey Goode could be doing innocently. So let's talk about two tracks. Number one, Corey Goode is a military operative sent here by military intelligence to monitor and disrupt the ufology and secret space program research community. He does this through the highly paid, appearing on highly paid shows and appearing with quote unquote CIA shills like David Wilcock and Jimmy Church, who heavily promote them, to come in and interject into ufology and into the community false narratives, false, foolish narratives that achieve two goals. Number one, they serve as red herrings, distracting people who legitimately are interested in this field, who would legitimately engage in interest in research that might cause them to one day write a letter to a senator or show up at a military field with a pair of binoculars trying to figure out what's going on, who would set up a website or a YouTube channel researching this stuff and making it harder for people to hold on to secret information. He introduces false, foolish narratives that put those people on wild goose chases that prevent them from doing real work. The other thing that they do is, to the public at large, they will see the ufology community, and instead of seeing cogent, salient researchers like the likes of Richard Dolan, Walter Bosley, Joseph P. Farrell to a degree, et cetera, because he gets fantastical with some of his research too, et cetera, talking about things like real history, real research. Instead, they'll get blue avians, blue chicken cult people, and all this sort of nonsense. And they will say to themselves, ufology, tinfoil hat, stupid people believing stupid things. Okay.
Right.
Next track. Corey Goode is just a chancer and a romancer, a con artist, a compulsive liar, just a fantasyist telling stories of fantasy to people who want to hear stories of fantasy. Okay, so he's not a military intelligence operative specifically sent to disrupt the game, but he'll still disrupt the game. Why? Right. He sucks the oxygen out of the room. Every 45 minutes, an hour and 15-minute presentation put on by Corey Goode is another hour and 15 minutes lost to have a guy like Richard Dolan, or maybe someone who could be the next Richard Dolan, the next generation, of right. getting up there and doing a detailed PowerPoint presentation about the latest advances coming out of CERN and the implications for that when it comes to things like anti-gravitics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So that, that's the thing. Even if he's not doing it intentionally, even if he's not sent here by the CIA and the NSA, the same goal is achieved, because we still look like a laughing stock to the people at large. The industry is still discredited, and money and attention that could be going to legitimate researchers and legitimate causes instead is diverted into these fantastical, wild, pie in the sky stories. And so that's it. So that's what, and a lot of the stuff. And then you get to the thing with the trademarking of the secret space program, or SSP. Then you have a person who might be intentionally or unintentionally setting up a potential roadblock to researchers in the future being able to do what they need to do to make $1 and a cent to eke out a living and do this valuable work. So even leaving aside what might be considered the salacious details of the interpersonal shenanigans, the fighting, the doxing, et cetera, even before you dig down deep to that level of the problems with Corey Goode as a person and as an actor, you still get a series of problems with an industry that's willing to let Corey Goode be booked at places like MUFON conventions. Why on
Do you think the industry as a whole has a responsibility? Do you think the industry has a responsibility to vet some of these people?
do they want to vet these people? Here's the
I
next
don't
dirty
think they
look.
do as long
Yeah,
as they sell a
yeah.
ticket. I don't think they do as long as they sell a
Exactly.
ticket.
Exactly. Dirty little secret time. What if I were to suggest that the vast majority of people involved in this quote unquote community, whether as a broadcaster on FM radio or internet radio, whether as a researcher appearing at conventions, whether as an author writing books, whether as a contactee or an experiencer channeling the messages of the Orion Council, what if I were to suggest that a vast majority of these people are not true believers, but the vast majority of these people are just people trying to make a buck? Hey,
Yeah.
I tried to write romance novels under the pen name of Jack Longington, and that didn't work. But I found out that if I just move this around, that around, this around, and that around, I changed he's to she's and big rock hard throbbing cocks to UFOs. All of a sudden, I found myself with a marketable product that I could sell to a certain aspect or a certain segment of the population. Um,
Can we
and
put on our speculation hat real
Sure,
quick?
we can.
And
Sure we can. Put on two of them.
let's imagine this. Let's imagine this. What if Gaia was putting on conventions? What if Gaia started getting their fingers in the pies of the live events? And then they had a way to have Gaia TV and have their stars and their people. And then when they have a convention, then they get to control the agenda and the speakers and the presentation and the merch and just get a wraparound deal. Do you think there's any danger in that? Do you think that might be part of their plan?
We might already be there. If we look at what's going on in 2015 to 2018, and if we were going to ask ourselves really what's happening, what's going on, we need to, as we do in all industries, follow the money. Two major players, two
That's
major
right.
things that happened going on now. There never used to be an alien con for the ancient aliens, but now
Right.
there is. And if we look at the people that appear on Contact in the Desert, we see that there's a high move, there's a big move to not just a random assortment of people from this field and that field. This guy gets along, that guy who doesn't get along. It's a select coterie of people. For example, look at George Tsoukalos.
Mm-hmm.
George Tsoukalos made his money and his fame as a bodybuilder who followed the bodybuilding scene. And then at some point, he got interested in ancient aliens. God bless him, but he's not a credible researcher. He hasn't a researcher. He hasn't been around asking these questions since whatever. They always say that he's the publisher of this magazine or that magazine. I've never seen a copy of that magazine anywhere.
Right.
There's no such thing as print media. What do you tell me he's a publisher of this magazine? He's on Ancient Aliens. George Norrie, I saw in Contact in the Desert, and I was looking at the lineup of people, and I was saying to myself, why would people go and want to hear a speech by George Norrie? He's not a researcher. He's an FM radio host, right?
Correct.
Why would I
Correct.
want to? Why would I want to spend extra money for brunch with the guy with the hair from Ancient Aliens? Well, maybe dirty little secret time is if you go to these real conventions are famous not for making money, they're famous for losing money.
Right. I think that's changing. And I don't think we would be seeing Alien Con in Pasadena and Baltimore if there wasn't money there.
Well, exactly. But it's what money? It's controlled money. Okay. And it's not money that's coming from
It's just
the
corporate
ground
money.
up.
Yeah.
It's corporate money. It's corporate advertising dollars. It's coming from the History Channel. It's coming from. Why do you think it's a mistake that one of the leaders over at Gaia TV is from Viacom? She used to work at MTV. They know what this is. They know what this is about. But if you look at this guy, Jersey, who started Gaia TV, this is old hat for him. These are the guys that turned in I forget, it's not Trader Joe's. It's like, and it's not Whole Foods, but it's another one of these things where it was like basically involves like the Walmartification of the natural food and health food market. And just like just like Walmart comes in and destroys the local mom and pop hardware stores till all that's left is Amazon and Walmart. These companies come in and destroy if you got a natural food store and you see Trader Joe's or Whole Foods move in, you kiss your ass goodbye. And the same thing with the yoga scene. You know what I mean? Look at, like I said, before it was Gaia, it was Gaiam. They went in and they heavily marketed VHS and DVD tapes of home instruction for yoga. Don't go get yourselves at a yoga class where you're going to meet other individuals and hear people talk about their lifetime study and love of yoga. No, hi, I'm Tommy Yee. And this
Right.
VHS tape, we're going to take you through all let your peaceful energy flow. Trademark patent pending. Never mention any Hindu gods, right? Don't talk about Kundalini energy, all that, get that weird stuff. Just a nice, safe little program. Waves crashing in the background. Beautiful people on the beach in white. Ah, do you know what I mean? And that's where they made their
I'm,
money.
I'm
And
relaxing already.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the hypnotism at work there, baby. You know, that's how it happens. And before you know it, people find money and
No.
they see what happens. So and then and again, you see what happens and who gets to speak and who doesn't get to speak. Who's booked
Right.
and who doesn't get booked. And I will also say this. Dirty little secret time. I've been critical of it. She was very nice and conciliatory to me when I did my thing yesterday, but I feel like people should be honest. Look, let's talk about Teresa Naros. If
Sure.
Teresa Naros looked like C.W. Chanter, would she have had the rocketed to fame the way she did? Would she be going right from Corey Good's Rogers Full Disclosure Project right to Jimmy Church's get KGAR, whatever radio? Would she be
Mm-hmm.
being handpicked to replace a speaker at a convent at one of these conferences if she just looked like me or you or an average person? What's
Right.
happening? Who gets promoted? Look at Teal Swan, who gets promoted by Hay House, a guy that looks like, you know what I mean, like, Walter Benjamin or a guy who looks like Private Benjamin. Do you know what
Right.
I mean?
And they try that with Emery Smith. They always post pictures of him when he was younger, and he
When he
has
was
a certain
younger, yeah.
Rico Suave vibe going on in some of those
Rico,
pictures.
exactly. Ah, you
So
know what I mean?
how can so with all this being there and us kind of coming to this point in this conversation, what would you say to the community? How can the community, or what steps can the community take as a whole, or maybe as individuals? Because I don't know, I don't always count on unity. It's been a good thing here on social media. I like what I've seen today on Twitter and here in the chat room for this, and in the chat room on your show last night. Lots of good things are being said, and I think people are aware. But overall, what advice would you give to the general audience about how to push back against these type of charlatans? What's the best steps to take against them?
The best step is the really the crucial step for people is this: remain an individual. Don't There's no reason to join a team. It never occurs to people when they're, well, sometimes maybe it's something natural about the human species. Maybe it's something about our primitive reptilian centers of our brains, that we feel the need to socialize and get into groups and tribes. But my attitude about it is this: is that if you'd be hard pressed to imagine fans of General Hospital feeling the need to go to war and doxing fans of One Life to Live, right? You have a hard time
I
imagining.
kind of wish that were true, but I
Wouldn't I
get your
know?
point.
That's like a Philip K. Dick novel that didn't happen that we should run with. Like, there's a script, there's a treatment in there somewhere, right? In the
Yes.
future, you know what I mean? In the year 3000, Luke and Laura's spirits live on. We must prevent them from being sullied by the shenanigans at Point Pleasant. I forget where the heck these places took place, but you know what I mean. You'd
Right.
be hard pressed to imagine that the fans of the Golden Girls would go to war with the fans of Give Me a Break, right? And yet, in this world where people are essentially consuming the same entertainment products with the same level of intellectual sophistication, that's what happens. Where you get these cults of personality develop and people start believing these highfalutin nonsense. Here's what I would tell people: come back to planet Earth. After you go to the convention and the people are telling you that they're after disclosure, it's the same thing that give people advice about about getting out of cults. Don't listen to any one organization. If you want to be a member of a church, a congregation, a meeting house, or house of prayer, that's fantastic. Don't move to the commune. It's not necessary. Talk to your mom, talk to your grandmother, talk to your loved ones, talk to your brothers and sisters in the family that used to know you. And when they start telling you things like, baby, you're in the bell jar, or we don't know what happened to you, okay? I mean, if you're in recovery and you start going to NA meetings, yeah, keep on going to NA meetings and don't worry about the crackheads that tell you that they miss you passing around the pipe. You know what I mean? But if we're talking about this sort of stuff, don't go to a convention and listen to somebody telling you that you're going to be part of the change that you can believe in. You can read that in a Hallmark card by Gandhi. You can live that truth. You can live that truth on your day-to-day job as a construction worker or a grocery store attendant. Okay, the real truth and knowledge is this, is that in a world where you can go down to your local public library and get a copy of the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or the Holy Bible or the writings of Lao Tzu or whatever, or Confucius, you don't need to believe in these guys. You don't need to follow anybody. You don't need to give everyone your last bottom dollar. And don't let anybody compromise you morally and ethically. If people stayed in their integrity as individuals, they wouldn't get hoodwinked, because these individuals would turn to them and say things like, you know what I think you should do? You know what would really help? Get involved. Help us dox this person. Help us dox that person. If you're standing strong in your individuality and integrity, you would have someone turn that and say that to you, and you would say, of course I'm not going to do that. I would no sooner do that than throw my mom down a flight of stairs. And you would be able to wake up and say, this individual has just asked me to do something low down, dirty, and nasty. If someone asks you to make a video about another human being who has suffered from a traumatic brain injury, you're free to look that person in the eye and say, what the hell did you just ask me to do?
Right.
And say, not only am I not going to make a video about that, but what I am going to make a video about is the fact that you just asked me to do that. And I'm going to go to the cops. And I'm going to blow a whistle. And I'm going to tell the truth. And also, you would sit there and you'd say, hey, listen to the story about the blue avians and simply say to yourself the following: that's a beautiful story. And I'm going to think about it. And when they show up, let me know, because they sound like a heck of a group of guys and gals, and I would really love to meet them. But for the time being, when all I have is you at this conference, I paid my money, I came here, I got the hug, I'll ask my question at the end, I'll get my little gray alien on a mug, you know what I mean? Wish you were her, mug, whatever the case it was, and I'll go about my business. You know what I mean? And I'll look at the sky, and I'll catalog strange instances, and I'll go to the MUFON convention, and I'll take the little course and go out there with my decoder ring and my little official MUFON notepad. And then what happened? Well, I just kind of buzzed around there for a minute, then left. Okay. Case number 735769783. The case of strange blue orb observed in the corner of an eye. You know what I mean? And you'd move on about your business. So that's what I would say to this community. Recognize it for what it is, and don't get involved in sub-communities. If you're interested in ufology or this or disclosure or whatever, forget this nastiness of people telling you about the cabal or that the enemy is this person or that person, because if you know anything about the long history of conspiracy theory culture, it's the following: the way that the powers that be, that you don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to know about. We know that the lion's share, the 99.9% of the wealth in the world is owned by 0.0000001%. We know what the problem is, and we know how they've worked since we were calling them kings, and then we call them oligarchs, or we call them titans of industry, or we call them politicians. It's the same old game. The people at the top keep the people at the bottom divided, attacking, and fighting each other so that they can remain at top. And you know what? In the middle layer, dirty little secret time, at the middle layer are individuals who know and have learned that trick. And so they go, when anything starts to turn against them, they say, the cabal are after me. It's the Dark Alliance. It's this and that, the other thing. getting people involved in these crazy fantasy games. But these games are dangerous because you tell people these things. Look at Heaven's Gate. People actually
Right.
killed themselves. Look at QAnon and the
Yes.
guy that tried to take over the Hoover Dam. Look at the guys that guy that jumped over the fence of the wall, the White House, telling people
Right.
about reptilian aliens that he had learned about from David Icke. It's dangerous. Think about all the militia yahoos who are going to go down to the Texas border to shoot anything brown on command because they think it's the tip of the spear of the caravan of 4,000 military-aged people or whatever that are coming to do exactly what thousands of people do every day, cross the American border legally and illegally. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? The majority of
Right.
whom are coming here to get jobs, not to
Yep.
kill everybody, not to kill cops and rape white women. No, they're just coming over here to get jobs. Are there bad apples in the bunch? Sure. But guess what? If we built a wall and kept all of them out, you know what happens? We're just left with the jerks that are on the inside of the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We've
you're
got
gonna walk into the
rapists.
fucking produce section at your grocery store and it's gonna be empty. That's what's gonna happen.
There's that, and then also the notion this is that some of the way that these people argue or articulate the argument seems to be that if we just kept all the outsiders out, we would live in a utopia, as if isolated,
Isolation
homogeneous,
is bullshit.
like monocultures are free from crime, as if there's no such thing as a white rapist, murderer, or thief. Come
Right.
on, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Come on.
So I kind of want to seize the baton here. We're not at the end, everyone, but we're starting our re-entry trajectory. We're starting to kind of bring it in. For one thing, I appreciate you staying up so late East Coast time and doing this. And I just want you to know you have my gratitude for doing this. And you're welcome on this show anytime.
And we got to, and I'll return the favor. We got to have you on to promote you. You've been a fine person to talk to, a fine human being to talk to, and I endorse this show. I endorse you as a person and personality. Not that you need my endorsement. I would love to have you on as a guest to return the favor of you having me on here. Really, honestly, and truly.
Thank you so much. I'm honored by that. So I want to throw out a couple of quick questions for you, and then we'll get into some longer form stuff as we re-enter. Here's a quick question. Is it possible, and I'm asking for me because I mentioned this on one of my shows last week. I did a solo thing, and I just want to tell you my experience, and I want to tell you my conflict, and I want to get your read on it. Very quickly, I attended Contact in the Desert, but I didn't know that much about it. I was there because I was going to start this podcast, and I went to gather interviews. It was a working event for me. I did not go to listen to people talk. The only lecturer that I listened to at Contact in the Desert this year was Richard Dolan. That was it. That's the only person I sat and listened to. The Messiah, that's right. And I hung out with him and Tracy. And but I did my work. I was there. So anyway, I met Jimmy Church, and he was very nice, and he was very tired, and he looked overworked, and he agreed to do a 10-minute interview with me. And he came over to my little shitty table where I had everything set up, and he gave me a 24-minute interview, and he was very personable and very likable and very nice. And based on my personal interaction with him face to face, I cannot say anything bad about Jimmy Church in terms of my interaction with him.
Right.
But I am conflicted, and I'm wanting to know if other people out there in the audience are conflicted, because I like Jimmy as a person. I even like the overall format of his show. I like what he does. I think he is a good interviewer. I think he's talented. I think he's skilled. But his aligning himself with these fucksticks, David Wilcock, Corey Good, and Emery Smith, is like this weird schism in my mind where I can't wrap my head around this. Like, how can I like this guy? How can I like, in general, in a basic way, what he does? But then he's promoting these guys. He's having them on a lot, like you say, and he's really endorsing that whole fucking cult thing. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around that.
Right.
And I also would like to know if anyone else suffers from from that with Jimmy.
A lot of people say that. A lot of people have reactions. The criticisms that I hear the most often are the following: that with this Corey Good thing and with David Wilcock, there is a loss of objectivity. That he's not merely acting as a conduit of information, that he's getting or appears to have gotten involved. That the level of promotion seems to be almost more like a managerial or business partner uh, affectation or experience rather than just, I'm Art Bell and here's Richard Hoagland, and after Richard Hoagland leaves, there's going to be another guest, and after that guest leaves, there's going to be another guest, and I remain Art Bell on Coast to Coast AM at a certain level of reserve, friendly, personable, nice, but not involved, and not taking part or playing favorites, as it were.
Right.
The next criticism that I hear is that the notion of this cultivation of the fate or not community, that in and of itself has a kind of weird vibe to it, to a lot of people, and the notion that that the fade to black sandbox over time is in less and less a place that's open to free speech, where people are allowed to say things that are possibly negative about featured guests, or ask strong and stringent questions about Corey Good or the trademark issue or this, that, or the other thing. And a lot of people are saying things like Rita is very quick to ban people. That's
Right.
what's said. Now, having said that, you could also, here's what happened. And so here's what happens often. This happened with me, and this happened with me back in the day with Shane the Ruiner. I think it happened with Joe from the Carolinas and Teresa. I think it's happened with me and Teresa, and to a degree, it happens has happened with me and Jimmy to a degree. Not that I've ever had an experience with him personally, but based on the fact that he did come out and make a statement regarding doxing that specifically said and addressed the issue of don't tell me that you just retweeted it. He specifically said that retweeting somebody's dox was a dox. So when he does that, I say to myself, I don't know why he's doing it, but I want to remind myself to say this. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a human being, he's a businessman. And even though I might not like the concept of a slick FM radio guy, hey guys, what's up? Jimmy Church,
Right.
FM radio voice, FM radio with bumpers and music breaks, and I love heavy metal, Judas Priest. All right. That even though I might find that at some level objectionable, guess what? It's the United States of America. And if Jimmy Church wants to identify in the ufology conspiracy theory community based on his work with Art Bell, based on his knowledge that a product like Coast to Coast AM can exist, can thrive and survive, as a father, as a husband, as a guy that's entitled to live his life, smoke as much weed as he wants to, drink as much fucking Gobelli Tepley coffee as he wants to, he's got a right to do things that I might be personally offended by. Having said that, given the fact that the statements and the criticisms of Corey Good don't just end at it's a foolish story. If the only thing that we could say about Corey Good is that he's got the personality of a milquetoast mime and his stories make no sense, well, that's one thing. But when there's credible allegations coming out that he's running an organization that's involved in systematized gaslighting, that him as a personality and the cult of personality surrounding him could lead to and has already led to dangerous situations, I would like to think that earlier on in the evaluation of things that Jimmy Church would have said, we've had you on and that's fantastic. And now I'm going to have somebody else on. And maybe that's what it'll go back to. But like I said, it's difficult. Jimmy Church might have seen and said to himself that with David Wilcock, and also the thing is this, is that people become friends. And when you become friends,
Right.
objectivity, I'll tell one story before we move on, is there's a guy, like I mentioned him before, Shane the Ruiner. And I did a video about him, just like I do the videos about Corey Good, giving him no quarters, slicing into him, dicing into him. He appeared on my show. I said, well, why don't you appear with me on an interview? And he said yes. And he's charming. He's nice. He's friendly. He's a father like me. He's got financial struggles like me. He's a human being like me. And then I discovered something. I couldn't talk about Shane the Ruiner like I talked about Corey Good. I couldn't talk about Shane the Ruiner's interviews like I analyzed the interviews of Randy Kramer or Andrew Bashago. It was
Mhm.
impossible because I wasn't talking about objectively like a journalist covering a story. I was talking about somebody that I knew and somebody that I came to care about as a human being. That's natural and that's normal. The danger is that if we're not careful, so for example, when Joe interviewed Teresa Yaneros, something happened where I ended up like pitching a freak out. I don't know if you're aware of that. Like I had this like basically this total hissy fit about it. But what it
Awesome.
was really, yeah, what was really about was the notion of, you know, she left the sphere being aligned. She left the Full Disclosure Project. She's got her reasons and her rationales. And she's allowed her life too. And she's allowed to live her life and need to feed herself and take care of her family, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, when I was watching that interview with her, I thought to myself, I go, you're never going to talk about her the same way again. And we're never going to be able to cover this objectively. And it's the same thing when Jason Rice came out for interviews. Corey Good's a bad guy. Corey Good attacked Jason Rice. So even I'm being very nice to Jason Rice. Joe's being very nice to Jason Rice, etc. But you know what? Jason Rice's testimony is absolutely as debunkable as Corey Good's. Aliens,
Right.
alien technology, 20-year and back programs. And
Yes.
I don't know. And it might be that maybe at least a couple of us should know and understand that if we're not careful, I guarantee you that we're not the first generation of people who came onto the scene and their first instinct was to talk about things. And then you start going to conferences, right? And then you start to be people's friends. And then people get involved in interpersonal stuff, people run through financial, and then all of a sudden, are you talking about these things objectively? Is it a conference anymore, or is it a schmooze fest? We've all seen those pictures of those people at the inner sanctum, the central table, and it's lit, and you feel like you could hear the old school Hollywood reporter voice in the background. And who's that in the
Right.
corner? It's Linda Moulton Howe.
Exactly.
She knows the score. Oh, Linda, what are you wearing this season? Meow. Oh, and there's Jimmy Church. Be careful, Jimmy. Don't stand too close to that coffee pot. It might heat up. You know, whatever the case may be. And it's just the same old Hollywood shindig. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Well,
And
I
I
have told people,
yeah.
and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
You're
no,
you're
interrupt
you're
you
so
what?
articulate. I will interrupt you anyway. I
Go
have
for it.
told people, and I told people this at Contact in the Desert, and I behind the scenes while I was working on my interviews, I said, "This is show business. Don't let anybody fool you or lie to you. Don't fucking fool yourself, because I'll tell you why. There's lights, there's a stage, there's a microphone, they're selling T-shirts, they're selling the CD, they're selling you something. It's show business." It is show business. It's
You
entertaining.
better be.
It can be informative. It can be life changing, and it can be cathartic for experiencers or people who are doing research that they are passionate about, that they want to reveal to the rest of society. There are good things that come from this. And I think it sparks innovation and thinking and creativity. And I think it opens people's horizons. But I don't know, I kind of lost my point.
No,
It, it
yeah, it's show business,
it is show
right?
business. God damn it! There's lights and microphones, and that's all it is. It's a stage, and there's fandom, and there are people who want selfies afterwards, and there are people who elbow their way in to get into a good position. And I've seen it. I've
Yeah,
seen it firsthand. I've been there, and I saw it
right.
go down.
It's
And
beta cuck
it,
Hollywood, right?
right, it is, and it's Hollywood for geeks, but at the same time, I don't want to totally crumb on it, because
Yeah,
I also at the same time that I can hold that kind of sentiment, I can also hold a sentiment that says those are my people, and they are flawed, and some
sure.
of them are fucked up and stupid and crazy, but those are my people because they are people who are open to an idea that we're all being kind of hoodwinked, or that at the very least, there's some phenomena going on in our world and no one wants to help explain it or say what they know about it.
Right.
And we've covered a lot of territory tonight.
Sure, sure.
And we've kind of, it's been a nice arc, but I want to give you a few minutes here to just totally riff. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to riff on? I'm going to give it over to you and just go ahead and say what you'd like to say.
Well, first of all, I mean, again, we said it like at least 3 or 4 times, but I'm going to say it again. Nothing gives me more satisfaction than to come on and to be invited onto another person's program. It's a thrill. It's an absolute thrill to be a guest, to have another human interact, and to be kind of, you know what, the dirty little secret about those the Hollywood games. It's like, it's quite possible that we're all LARPing, that it is a beta cuck Hollywood. It couldn't make it. We couldn't, you know what I mean? In the big Hollywood of big Hollywood, we would never make it. But it's like porno stars at the AVN Awards. For them, even though they're there for best blowjob or best gangbang or whatever case is, for that night, they are treated, they're on the red carpet living out their dreams and their fantasies from their childhood of being a real Hollywood movie star. And why begrudge them that night? And why begrudge people in Contact the Desert? Let's face it, a lot of people that come to these things, it's like when I'm at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, people often say, you know, no one got here accidentally. You know what I mean? Right. So when it comes to the Contact in the Desert, everyone is seeking contact in the desert. A lot of us and a lot of our community are not maybe the best looking people, the most socially experienced, or the most socially. There might be a lot of people on the Asperger spectrum when it comes to the audience of these things. So there are a lot of seekers, right? Yeah, exactly. God bless it. Yeah. So when it comes to it, the dirty little secret is as we're hunting for the problems to solve, we might find ourselves in a position where the true realization is this. The same rules and problems with life that we're going to experience here are the same problems in life that we experience in the outside world. That in this wonderful world, whether it's our workplace, whether it's our family, whether it's our new brother-in-law or sister-in-law, some of those people are going to be okay people, and some of those people are going to be people that we can't stand, and some of those people are going to be dangerous. Some of us, unfortunately, are going to meet a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend, and that the arc of that relationship is not going to end in wedding bells. The arc of that relationship is going to end up being in a police precinct swearing out a protection order. And that's the way that it goes sometimes. But still, we find ourselves in a thing. So where I say is that if it was just that Corey Good was telling fantastical stories, it'd be one thing. And we concentrate on Corey Good. And I concentrate on, look, it's personal. The dude doxed me and put my father's face on Twitter.
No, we're going bookending it. We're bookending it. Yes.
No, I know. Right thing here. I mean, absolutely. Like, so when it comes to that, the stuff becomes personal. But like I said, is that, I've been doing the YouTube thing since 2015. I have never had this experience. There's never been this controversy or these things to talk about with any of the other players on the field. Not with Alfred Lambermont Weber, not with Andrew Bashago, not with Randy Kramer, not with Shane the Ruiner, not with anybody, not with Kerry Cassidy of Project Camelot or Simon Parks. Though there are problems to talk about and issues to describe, it has never gone to the point of people, quote unquote, doxing each other or trying to come at each other and attack back. It's a very strange time to be alive. At the same time that we're talking about this stuff in this isolated environment, a lot of this stuff dovetails into QAnon, which dovetails into the very, 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 very bifurcated American society we find ourselves living in today, where it's no longer a case of Republicans and Democrats merely coming to different solutions for the same problems, but it comes to a world where one side and the other side can't see each other as just political adversaries, can't see each other as just people of a different mindset or psychological valence on issues, but rather sees each other as subhuman. You're deplorable. You're this. You're that. And everything digresses, and no one can get along, and everything has to turn into a fight. And then there's social media. So some things stay the same, and we repeat the same cycles. We repeat them on new playing fields. The social media landscape has changed things. It's very interesting to see what happens next. Tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day for me at the office. we're going to have to see if anyone decides to go out of their way to come to my office to disrupt things, if anyone decides to call or try and do a denial of service on my next YouTube stream, if anyone decides to send a threatening letter to me or my family, if anyone reaches out and tries to harass my father, who, like I said, in his late 80s. We don't know what's going to happen. And all I hope is that cooler heads can prevail, and people can just go about their business. And if I had one final thing to say, I would say something to Corey Good. It's over. Okay? It's not, whatever you think is going to happen is not going to happen. You're not going to be contacted and spirited away to financial success in Hollywood. Stop this. Just go back, accept reality, accept life on life's terms. You have an IT degree, you have IT training, you have a LinkedIn page. Scrub everything you can from this experience of your life. Move to a new place in a new town with your family. Move back in with your folks if you have to. There's no shame in that. And start again. And start again knowing and understanding what you learned in this round. Because what's going to happen? We're going to keep on going until it breaks out into violence. That's going to be a terrible fight. Not only because it's going to be a terrible fight, because it's terrible when people fight. There's no certified ass kicking machines on any side of this controversy. This is all small, nebbish dudes like David Wilcock, Corey Good, Joe from the Carolinas, CW Chanter, and Dart Journalist. There's 2 words to describe a fight between these 2 tag teams. A bad fight. Okay? That's going to go on forever. Can I referee? Yeah. Oh, get involved. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm doing. That's why you're here. What do you mean? Hey, I got involved when I called Jimmy Church and dropped your name on the air.
And God bless you from the bottom of my heart, from the cold black bottom of my heart. You know what I mean? I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. That was a wonderful time to be alive. And that was an amazing time to see things happen because, look, I mean, for a long time, I knew that there was this controversy and I tried to get through. And the big problem was that Corey Good had this huge megaphone. David Wilcock had this huge megaphone. And the people that were trying to debate and the people that thought there were issues that need to be addressed were drowned out and simply couldn't break through. So you played a crucial moment in time. Everything happens for a reason. And whether you believe it or not, first of all, Natasha, I got to warn you, unfortunately, because you're interviewing me and not interviewing Corey Good or someone else at Kissing Their Booty, despite the fact that you're asking me tough questions, despite the fact that you're probing, there are going to be people that are going to suggest that you've picked a side, and they're
Corey Good.
That guy.
Corey Good, Jordan Sather, all you guys, you assholes. Fuck you.
There you go.
Fuck you. I'm not afraid of you. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to fear. So
nobody does.
Nobody does. It's stupid.
It's 40-year-old men acting like cyberbullies on the internet.
Right.
See it for what it is. It's not a dark cabal. It's not Illuminati power moves. No one's challenging the powers that be. David Icke, Alex Jones, Jordan Sather, Corey Good, David Wilcock. None of these guys' lives have ever been threatened by the crucial, important work that they're doing. Never, ever, 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 ever has anyone tried to kill any of these people, because what everybody is doing here is we are all LARPing on planet Earth. It's a live-action role-playing game called Life on Planet Earth, and nobody's filming it but us with our own biological cameras called our quivering eyeballs. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I have 2 questions for you. Sure. These are the closing questions, and we'll wrap it up. And this has been fantastic. I want to take a moment, thank everyone in the chat room, and thank everyone who's watched this whole time. Thank you for your time and attention. Like I always say, I know that there's a lot of competition for your time and attention. And the fact that you would spend your time and attention here with me and with CW, I'm honored by that, and I appreciate it, and thank you. Next to last question, CW. How do you see yourself in the context of this community? What part do you play? Who are you? Who are you in this community? What's your role?
My name is CW Chanter because I came up with a religion for myself as a spiritual seeker, always looking for a port of call or a place to call home and never finding one. I eventually sat down in my late 30s and started formulating all the things that I thought all the faiths that I'd been involved in had in common, and all the things that I thought were central to the spiritual practice of man on planet Earth. And I came up with a religion for myself called Commonwealth Chanting. And so where I see myself as eventually is this, is that I tell people all the time to the issue and to the degree that I interact with these alternative forces and talk about people in this community, I am generating a subscription base and I'm generating attention in me as a person so that every once in a while I can do my real work, which is explain Commonwealth chanting and try and share it with people, not to make any money or anything off of it, but just to say that I found it necessary to have a daily spiritual practice in my life as a touchstone and a focal point, to figure out what life is really about, trying to diminish the ego, trying to be of more service to others than service to self in the realest way possible, and trying to get a real sense of life satisfaction so that when I eventually do pass away, as we all must, I will be able to look back on the arc and the narrative of my life and see it as having some sort of purpose and having done some sort of work. So I'll be prepared at the ultimate day to make the ultimate journey into the unknown, the final destination beyond the great sleep. So that's it. So that's what I'm doing. That's me on life on planet Earth, and also I'm a father and a husband, and I've got kids, and so I'm another player in the field. I'm not here to be super rock star famous. I'm not here because I think I've got all the answers. I've got a possible solution. And Natasha, what I'd like to do, the last thing, is make one sales pitch to you, and that's it. I'd like to encourage you. I don't know if you have a daily spiritual practice in your life, but this is something that I took on that has helped me, and maybe it'll help you. Maybe it won't. Every day I've made a commitment myself to read a spiritual text. It doesn't matter what spiritual text it is. It doesn't matter if it's a spiritual text that's defined by this organization or that organization, this faith or that faith. If I can look at a book, a text, a scroll, or whatever, and think that it's a spiritual text, it counts. So every day I read a spiritual text, whether it's a word, a sentence, a paragraph, or a chapter. I read.
Hunter S. Thompson would be my spiritual text.
That's perfectly acceptable. If it's a spiritual text and a religious text for you, that's all that's necessary to be a natural predicate. So you read a spiritual text every day. In addition to reading a spiritual text every day, you chant every day. Words that you may have heard of meaning in a pop song or in a poem or a play, or a word that you may have seen in one of these spiritual books. A repeatable phrase, a simple rhythm that you can do that can just kind of take your mind away. When trying to do silent meditation all the time, I had a real problem with it. It would often get distracted. So I found the meditation practice of chanting, mantra chanting, to be affirmative to me, to be applicable and amenable to me. And so I engaged in it. So you might find that part of what I said to you makes sense and you'd want to engage in it. You might find that all of it makes sense. You'd want to engage in it. You don't have to think of me as a guru or a leader. Just always remember, if you decide to do that spiritual practice called Commonwealth chanting, if it makes sense to you and it's a boon to your life, always just kind of remember me as a nice guy who told you about it.
All right.
That's it.
I'm open-minded. I'm willing to give it a try.
Give it a try. It works.
I'll talk to you about it off air, but I get it. I've done other forms of meditation. And here's the last question. Drum roll, everybody get ready. And much like a pit bull hanging on a fucking $10 tire, I'm not going to let this go. CW, please look into your camera as if you were talking to Jordan Sather face to face. What would you say to that guy right now?
I'd say, Jordan, the person that I'm fighting for most of all is you. You're at the center of this controversy because of actions that you did. The actions that you did, I'm not angry at you as a person. I don't hate you. It's in fact the fact that I do practice a spiritual belief that says that you're my brother and I love you. And I think that when I hear you espouse what you believe in, that you want to believe in that too, and that you want to actualize that in your life. Talk is cheap. We could say to each other and pat each other on the back and say, we got it. We love our fellow man. We're all light and we're all love and we're all this and the other thing. If we're doing the things that we're doing and we're not repairing ourselves and we're not taking a good hard look at ourselves and asking ourselves whether we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, we could say all the things we want to. We'll still end up shitting on the people around us and by extension, shitting on ourselves, bringing down our own self-esteem, our own sense of self-worth. Eventually, you're going to have to take a good hard look at what you did when you helped spread this information about Joe from the Carolinas. And you're going to have to ask yourself, why did I do that? And you're going to have to take into consideration exactly what you did. Okay? And that's going to be potentially problematic for you, but it's a good journey to engage in, and it's a good thing to do. Because if you do that, even though it might be hard to realize that it's a bad thing that you did, you can stop doing that. and you can make amends for the things that you did. I know Joe. And if you turned to him and you said to him, Joe, I effed up. I shouldn't have done what I did. I have a feeling that he would accept your apology, though I can't speak for him. And you would have to be prepared to listen to him tell you exactly what the impact on his life was when you did what you did. Okay? You're a very powerful position, but that means, this is the last thing I'm going to say to you, Jordan. If the higher you are up the food chain, the more ramifications there are and the more karmic debt there's going to be for the things that you do. If it's just you and you're a little guy in the playing field and you're selfish about your little ball, hey, that's life. But if you're a multimillionaire and you squander and you hold on to your money and you don't give it to the people around you and you're a selfish Scrooge and you screw over the people in the workplace and you do this and you do that, or you lie and you cheat, the vibrations that you set off in the universe are so much greater, and the ramifications for you are so much greater. Think about Mussolini. He ended up hanging out, no matter how long he was leader of his little piece of the world, he ended up butt naked, hanging by his toes in the center square. Don't be that guy. Be something better.
Well said. Well said. With that, you know, I can't really add anything to that. C.W. Chanter, thank you so much. It's been a great honor to have you on, and you are welcome back here anytime. And please stay in touch with me, because I'd like to have some more conversation.
Oh, no, yeah, this is the beginning. This is just the beginning.
Thank you so much for being here, and I play a little bit of music on the way out. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to Lisa P. for moderating while Pursuing X is out of town. I also want to thank Jimmy Pearson and Mika at Fascination Street. I'm going to be on that show in December. I want to give a shout out to Jiggy at Paranormal Hood. I want to give a shout out to Shadows of Your Mind magazine, Dave Partridge over in the UK. We love you, and we can't wait to see what you're working on. Shadows of Your Mind magazine. Don't forget Pursuing X, blah, 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 blah. It's been great. Thank you so much, everybody. Like I said, I always appreciate you being here. Smash the like, smash the subscribe. Please share this video. Get this out there. Let's troll these guys with this. They need to hear this message. CW, thank you for being here. Everybody, thank you. Everyone, good night.